Hello, I'm live. Wow, so much going on in the chat. Right. Oh, Mike was first. That'll upset Johnny. Hello, Jonathan. Hello, Debbie. Hello, Renee. We have a Deb. Oh, that means that's a full complement of Debs now, isn't it? Who else have we got? Hello, Renee. Hello, Graham. And hello, Kim. Hello, Peter. We have a dedicated demo for Peter today. And who else have we got in here? Don't want to miss anybody. Hello, Paul. I'm assuming it's alarmingly early there. Hello, Carol. Have I got everybody? Oh, Graham's just had a fruit scone or scone, depending on how you say it. And an aero bar. Oh, Graham. Now I'm hungry. Hello, Sarah. I think we've got everybody, but if not, then let me know. Then let me know. Oh, busy night, isn't it, Mike? You know, you said you were going to get some water.
Yeah.
And I'm surrounded by 3 bottles of it, but nothing in there where I actually need it. So if you sort that out, I'll sort the screen out, and then everything will be tickety-boo, and we can get on with the show. So I've done that bit. I'll do that bit, then go back to that bit. Then click the magic button, and you're seeing what I'm seeing, and I can see the chat. Yes, I'm impressed as well. It's all going too well. Something's bound to go wrong now.
Water.
Thank you. So let's get on with it. Oh, show 130, can you believe it? This one, you remember Marooned started as 5 shows? This one started as 1, if you remember. It was demanded that we did more, so we did. Okay, what do we have this week? We have the week at MacBites headquarters. Interesting. So some funny pics in there. We've got lots of updates, new toys, and all kinds of things. Then we've got printing a file list from Pathfinder, which was requested. That was requested by Peter, so we will do that. Then we've got creating a document library in Zenkit. We have a soft spot for Zenkit here. We used it for a year to produce the MacBites podcast. But then there's a new kid on the block, which is Craft, which is just gorgeous. Oh, so buttery smooth. So we'll look at it in Craft as well. Then Mike is looking at creating a timeline in Excel. And then we're on to the next part of our Finder series, which is looking at Forklift, which is another Finder alternative. So you need to tell me what YouTube's done to you this week. Oh, it got me down to 360 on an iPad. And I'm thinking that text looks blurred. It was them, not me. So make sure there's a cog lower right hand side. Make sure that you got the red flash on it and that you are watching at 1080p. While you're down there, if you could give us a like, that would be much appreciated. It really makes a difference with YouTube. So our week started on Saturday with more shows than we care to admit on Brooklands 196. But it was 8 o'clock when we came out of Marooned that everything went chaotic as usual, and we had a fabulous night in Brooklands by request, where the theme, in honour of Lucky Penny Day, I know you couldn't make these up, could you? We went off and had a look, you see, about what international day is it? Lucky Penny Day. No, I'm not sure either. So we had luck under money, and it was great, wasn't it, Mike?
It was.
Because we had money, followed by money, followed by money, money, honey, I want money, I love money. To say we got confused was an understatement. But, a good night was had by all, which was swiftly followed on Sunday by 2 Show Sunday. We first of all had Creating and Managing Assets in Affinity Publisher, which is now available on demand. Mike will find the link from somewhere. And we also had a Marooned, obviously. Had to dash out of Marooned to get to book club, because officially it was last week of book club, but it's not, because this week is the last week of book club, where the author is joining us. Zenkit is coming along. So it was the official. I must admit, I am a bit behind with book club. Not in terms of reading the book. Happily reading the book. We've got these little homework things to do, and takes quite some time, I can assure you. Anyway, that took me on to Monday. And while we were marooned, I said I was very busy. I was in Marooned and I was in 2 other sessions. And I won't say you didn't believe me, but it's like, how? And that's how. I've got Zoom on one side, I've got Zoom on the other, and I've got Marooned in the middle. That was how I was doing it. You'll also see there, there's my book, just to prove the point. And it's actually a paperback copy of that book as well, isn't it? Got the Kindle one, but that's not the point. Anyway, that was when Madam decided you must have been doing something Catinian-ish at this point. You must have been out of the room. Because I said, no, leave Lola in here, and so she doesn't bother you. And if you've been on Marooned with us, you'll know she talks, does Lola, quite incessantly at times. I said, leave her in here, and that way you can be quiet. Lola decided, because I said, block it off with the chair. Lola decided to limbo under it. Then realising she was no longer as svelte as she once was, nor as young as she once was, she got stuck. She took this ayah out on Chicken. She impaled him, not even joking, she did that. She impaled him on the drawer handle. And he's been sat there all week, bless him. She was very grumpy. She was a grumpy girl. By Tuesday, she was no less grumpy. Mike had just made the bed, and she decided he'd made it all wrong, and actually managed to get in there and double the quilt over and then snuggled up in it. Did that all by herself, bless her. She was probably disturbed by the fact that Mummy was drooling over kit that Mummy does not need, but wants. But of course, it's not actually genuine, this, is it? It's just a render. It's a concept for potentially what we might see with the MacBook Pro. And all I can see is ports on it. Oh, want. But we'll see. That's going to be a week on Monday when we do the WWDC 2021 show. So don't miss that. By Wednesday, Mike's hopes were high. All of the omens were there. It was the Europa League final. When I say all the omens were there, it was the 26th of May, which is the anniversary of Sir Matt Busby's birthday. It's also the anniversary, 22 years ago, of when United won the Champions League. So, all the omens were there. Sadly, no one had told the team. They staggered to 1-1 at full time, which meant penalties. And the penalties were going alarmingly well until the very last one. It went down to the goalkeepers taking penalties. Nobody had missed. And our goalkeeper picked up the ball, and I looked at his face and I thought, no chance. Turns out Mike looked at his face and thought no chance, but neither of us wanted to actually say it in case we jinxed it. But we might as well have done because he missed. So, things could have been better midweek. What do you say, Mike?
Bad words were said.
Bad words were indeed said.
Very bad words.
Very bad words. Almost as bad as poor Kath, who didn't realise that the match was actually live on YouTube. Until extra time when I told her, because I thought she was watching it. She was saying like, oh, that was close and all the rest of it. Turns out she was listening on the radio while I was watching it on YouTube. We must coordinate better in the future. Anyway, that took us on to Thursday. So by Thursday, I get busier as the week goes on, and I do not need any tech collapsing on me. But Thursday and Friday is always the day. This time I made the rookie error of double-clicking on an ICS file. That's a calendar file, if you're uninitiated, which was when that happened. And I thought, you're kidding me. Now, that's the Apple Calendar app, which I don't use anyway. But it must have been associated with an ICS file. So when I double-clicked on it, it said, do you want to try again? Well, it didn't really matter, because I then played Russian roulette with those three. It didn't matter what you clicked, that message just kept coming back at you, to the point you couldn't actually close the app. I thought, you're joking. So what I had to do in the end was click ignore and then try and close the app quick enough. Because if you remember, the last week, my calendar for the next the last 3.5 weeks and the next week and a half is utterly chaotic. with the courses that I'm on and everything else. It's utterly chaotic. So the last thing I need is a calendar error when my calendar looks like that. Anyway, we got out of it. I'm sat looking at my calendar when this happened. I don't think my poor computer can keep up with me and my calendar. That's that laptop again. I did persuade it. I did resurrect it, but it's still not happy. It's not happy with me. Definitely not. Which took us to Friday. Lola was in a better humour by Friday. Only just. But she spotted something to play with. If you can't quite see it in the left one, it's a cat sat on top of the wall. Just look at that mean cat face on the right. Did she want to play with Lola, Mike?
No.
No. She's got that kind of superior catalogue, hasn't she? Anyway, poor Lola. But Lola was interested, as ever. So, that takes us to Two Show Friday, which is, hey, where we're up to now. So, that was our week. Let us know what your week was like in the chat. Was it any better than mine on the tech front? It's got I Need New Tech written all over it, hasn't it? So, what's new this week? Well, one of the first things that's new, if you use Scrivener, they have released their own podcast. Now, before you get excited, it's not everything you need to know to use Scrivener. No. They are talking with authors who use Scrivener. But, might be an interesting listen. You never know. So, one to check out. Also this week, I got an email from the people who make ScreenFlow, which is Telestream. And I was thinking to myself, ScreenFlow 9. How long's that been out now? Quite a while, I thought. So, we got this mail. They have not given us a date for ScreenFlow 10, but it's on the way. I knew it was on the way when I saw that you could now upgrade for $39 and you get version 10 for free. I then did a bit of the Googles, and version 9 was released on the 12th of November 2019. And it's usually a kind of 20 to 24 month cycle. So I would be expecting to see that by September, October time. Now, the good news with this is, if you've got any version, and we're going back to version 1 here, so if you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 or 8, you can upgrade to version 9 for $39. So they're not distinguishing between really old versions and the last version, which is the current one, which is 9. So if you upgrade now, you can get 9 and you will get 10 for free when it's released. You might be wondering why I would be interested in this when I use Camtasia. But I also use ScreenFlow if and when I need to, because ScreenFlow already has the feature where it can record all your screens. So I could record all 3 of my screens plus an iPad straight into ScreenFlow, which Camtasia still does not have, even though Camtasia was updated about 6 weeks ago. So as far as I'm concerned, because I'm upgrading, it's only going to cost me $39 anyway. I will do that. So thought I would let you know. Also this week, shiny new toy for me. Oh, I'm liking that question. What if you already have 9? Then you will be able to upgrade to 10 for the $39 when it comes out. There is one caveat with that. We should probably go back, shouldn't we? There's one caveat with that. If you're buying from them, it's going to be $39. So that's a direct purchase, but a direct purchase is activated and you can only activate it on 2 machines. You can also buy it via the Mac App Store. The Mac App Store version will only be $39 for about an hour and a half as soon as it's released. No, seriously, it's a couple of hours. And then it goes to $49 for a couple of hours. And then it goes to $59 for a couple of hours. And within a couple of days, it's $99 and that's it. Or $129 and that's it. So there is no official way to upgrade in the App Store. So how they do it is a stealth release that comes out and it'll be $39. But you'll have to jump on it fast if you want that version from the App Store. The benefit of the App Store is you can install it on all the Macs you use. The downside of the App Store is if there is a critical update, and this has happened. It happened about 4 or 5 years ago when we were using it as our primary app. And the direct version, in fact all versions, it broke. It worked, except that your transitions were all blurry. And I had the version from direct from Telestream, but Mike had the App Store version. And when he produced his video, it was all blurry. An update was released within a day that fixed the problem. But that was to direct customers. I have no idea why they didn't ask for expedited review, but they didn't. It took 7 weeks for that to appear in the Mac App Store. So for 7 weeks, Mike wouldn't have been able to produce any video that didn't have blurry transitions. So what happened was I said, just pass it to me and I'll do it. So I was producing all of the video during those 7 weeks because Mike couldn't do it without it being blurry. So swings and roundabouts. You can only activate it on 2 machines, but you get faster updates, or in the App Store, you can have it on as many machines as you like. How I work around that is I buy it twice. I have 2 versions and I update both. Okay, hopefully that answers all of those questions. Right, so Dark Noise for the Mac. This is an app that's been available on iOS for quite some time, and we demoed it. There's a link in there, Mike. Not demoed, we did a review of it on MacBites, 128, the COVID Cat collection, and Norman Collier. If you are a listener, you will know exactly of what I speak, but Mike will put the link in. So Dark Noise is one of those apps that give you a kind of ambient noise. Well, it's just arrived on the Mac. Now, before we get past this screen, which is the App Store, don't click anything until I finish speaking, even if you think I want it and I want it now. When I went in, I got this mail and it said, it's in the App Store. So I clicked the link and that opened that you are looking at now. Only in the top right-hand corner where it's got a cloud and an arrow, it didn't. It had a price. And I think from memory, because it wasn't there that long, I think it was $8.99 or $9.99. I think in the UK it's $8.99. In the US it might be $9.99. The issue was there was a price. So I thought, well, is this something I want? Because I've got it on my phone and I use it on my phone all the time. Do I need it on my Mac? And I pretty much figured, no, I don't particularly need it on my Mac, but it might be nice to have. Treat yourself. But I thought, well, I need to take the screenshots before I do that. So I'll close it for now. I'll add it into my system, the system that I've got for, putting the slides together and putting the running order together for Friday nights. And I'll deal with it. I'll be efficient and I'll batch process everything. Obviously, I could just have hit buy and be done, but I didn't, which was just as well, because the next time I went in, it looked like that. And I thought, did I click buy last time? Did I inadvertently click buy? And I thought I can't have done, because if I had have done, I've not used any other machine this week apart from this one. And I thought if I had have done, it would say it's installed. It would say open, not download. I was so convinced, but you've got that 1% of doubt. I went to my email and I did a search through my email just to see if I'd inadvertently purchased it, but I knew I hadn't. So I think what's happened is, after the initial day that it was in there, because I have the iPhone version, I think it's one of these like group purchases. So if you know you've got Dark Noise and on iOS, and you go in here and there's a price, leave it a couple of days just in case, because that's what happened to me. So I did download and install it. I will show it to you, but obviously it's quite tricky to show, isn't it, without actually hearing it. But it gives you a range of noises. Brown noise, pink noise, so basically noise to work to. But also there's a whole range of sound effects to go with it. And it says it syncs with all the devices, and I can confirm indeed it does. Because once I did get it installed, the custom noises that I'd created on my phone automatically came through. There's also a range of ways to show it, so you can have it quite big or you can have it much smaller, as well as just minimising it and forgetting it. And it's got themes as well. So I will just very briefly show you what that looks like. It's opened on the wrong screen, but we can fix that. There we go. So what I've done in there, we've got favourites at the top, which is heavy rain. I just like rain at night. It makes me feel cool. You've also got there, as you can see, Rainy Coffee Shop. That's one of mine. Elaine's rain is like rain, but more rain. What can I say? I'm strange. But you guys know I'm strange. Come on. And there's also Cozy Rain. Now, Cozy Rain is a mixture. So when it says My Mixes, which is what we've got here, these elements there are mixes that I have made from other noises down here. So we've got water noises. Rain on tent's good. Underwater makes me feel like I'm drowning, so I don't do that. But also appliances as well. So another thing that I do is I will put a fan on. So I can actually just pretend that I've got a fan on with these noises. But the thing with a mix is you're taking any elements from here and creating your own mix for them. The cat purring's rather cute as well. And there's all kinds of noises in there. Now, one of the most popular ones is like an office or a coffee shop. And office noises came into their own when we all went into lockdown and we were working from home and people were like, it's too quiet. And I'm like, get a life. But that's me. So some people like an office noise. I don't. I just like a noise that kind of blurs into the background. And I never use a lawnmower because that would just freak Mike out because he's in charge of that. And I'm not quite sure why you'd want somebody snoring, but you know, it's there if you want. So just something that I use like in the background. That the one benefit for me of it on the Mac is that I've got fantastic speakers on the Mac. So if I did want to deafen anybody with them, then I could do that. I think I probably would have bought it, but obviously I didn't need to think about it because it appeared. But it wasn't there initially, so I honestly don't know. We do have a lot of rain, but you know, sometimes it's quiet rain and I want noisy rain. Now, what you can do with this is obviously you've got your choices that you've got here. These are synchronizing automatically. You can play them, no point me playing them because then I'll be drowned out. But the other thing you've got up here is that you can set durations or when you want it on, and you can configure it that way, which is quite handy. So that is something that I do actually use. It remains to be seen how much I would use that on my Mac, but it's there. Yes, they have construction noises. I actually think with this, one thing, I don't think I've actually done it. I've not needed to. But if you can imagine you're putting a piece together and you're talking about, oh, and, you know, then I woke up overnight and this happened. You could actually use these as sound effects. Like when the Siris talk to each other and there are certain sound effects. You could use these as sound effects because some of these I am never going to use. I agree with you. Why would you want to sit and listen to construction? Having said that, I think once, and I can't remember who on earth I was talking to. I'll let Mike have a think about it, but tell me first, just in case it's not for public consumption. But I remember having one conversation with somebody. It could have been my mother when they were on holiday, you know, and you're like, oh, yes, Mum, I'm really busy, or oh, yes, Mum, I'm out shopping. And I wasn't. And you could put that on in the background and you sounded like you were. I do remember doing that, but I can't remember who on earth it was and what the conversation was.
Me neither.
It's all right, it wasn't you. I wasn't trying to fool you. I was somewhere that I wasn't.
Oh, right.
Which is just as well. But yeah, you could use it as background sound effects for things like that. You know, you want to make somebody jealous, or, oh, I really can't come into work today because I can't get out of the back gate because somebody's digging. And there's the construction sound. Would you look at that? Yeah, you could do that with it. So I just thought I would give you a very brief look at that. Before we looked at the next new thing, so many new things this week. It's unbelievable. There is a new application from Cineum Software. If you're wondering who Cineum Software are, they're the people that make Screenium, which is a screen recording application. And their application is called FiveActs. And my first thought when I looked at it was like, oh, it looks like Scrivener. And it does. But FiveActs, it looks like it's more aimed at people writing screenplays. And it's got a lot of nice features. So it has this timeline, which is linked into a card view as well. And that timeline can get quite advanced if you want it to, by adding extra bits. So you've got your Act 1 at the top with your scenes in it, and then your Act 2 underneath, and everything can link together. So I think from that view, you can see there is a commonality there with Scrivener. But as I say, it looks to be more aimed at screenwriters. So in the binder on the left, you've got like scenes and who is the main person in the scene, etc. But interesting, if you have ever used Scrivener or you are writing either radio plays or physical plays, a whole extra range of options, I would say, some of these to Scrivener. They, as I say, you can get as detailed as you want. You can put all the text in that you want. It supports Fountain and, what's the other one called? Final Draft, which is the usual standard for sharing these type of files. It's got some diagrams that Scrivener doesn't have, which is like these, which are like sociograms. So in what way does Reggie relate to Adam and Reggie to Sylvie? You can see Sylvie's jealous of Reggie and stuff like that. So if you are working on that kind of material, which my material tends not to be, although you could say, maybe Obsidian's jealous of Rome, but it's a stretch, isn't it? But if it's people and it's that kind of writing that you're writing, then maybe a sociogram would be very helpful. There's also other elements to it in terms of, in this case, characters. So the sociograms are the diagrams of how the places and characters interact with each other. And you can see you're focusing here on Adam, and you've got the cards where he is in play. You've got the sociograms where he is listed and how he's interacting with others. You've got the arc at the bottom. You've also got locations, so you can actually describe the location and stuff like that. I did once, and it was only once, and Michael giggle when I say this, but I did once write some fanfic. It was a while ago, wasn't it, Mike?
It was good.
He enjoyed it. I think it was about 17 years ago, something like that. And I was on a PC at the time, and I didn't have anything snazzy like this. And it always stuck with me because this looks like overkill. It's like, I don't need a list of characters. I know who's in the book. I don't need a list of locations. I'm writing the book. And then there's things like props in here. So Barth's hat. An apartment, and then there's a key later on, which is down here. So that's like a complete description of him. And then you've got this item, so props. But I'm always reminded of this fanfic because there was one aspect of it, and I appreciate now you really do need to track stuff. Because I was busy writing it, and it was quite long. It's a good few chapters. And the scene started out with this briefcase, and this briefcase, somebody was carrying this briefcase into an office, and the briefcase was put on the floor, and then at some point the briefcase was put on the desk and it was opened. By the end of this scene, the desk was going to be needed for other purposes. I'll leave that to your imagination. And I thought, where's the briefcase? Was it on the desk or did it get put back on the floor? And if it got put back on the floor, when did it get put back on the floor? So honestly, if you are writing that kind of thing, that is incredibly useful and incredibly powerful. Should I buy that, Mike, while it's on offer? It's on half price at the moment, $23, and write some more fanfic for you.
Yeah, well, whilst you're buying that, Sarah wanted to know if you could export the sounds out of that dark noise. She wants to use them as backgrounds for yoga.
Not in terms of, it's not intended to export stuff like that, but what you could do is record it. There's probably some legal reason why not, but I'm guessing, if you've mixed your own, let's say like this, legally you might want to check that, but practically, yes, it can be done. The cheapest way to do that would be to get something like Piezo. Can you find the link for Piezo? It's at Rogue Amoeba. The best way to do it would be Audio Hijack, but that's heckishly expensive. The other way to do it is Piezo. It's from the same people, but it's much cheaper, much more cost effective. So yes, technically it could be done. Oh, Kim's liking this. The sociogram is like the murder board of Elaine's neighbours. I'm thinking maybe Simon could do with this. Do you know, I really now fancy finding this fanfic and dusting it off and putting it in there. I mustn't do this. I don't have time for this kind of thing. But it always stuck with me. Where's the briefcase? And I had to go back. You wouldn't believe how difficult it was to go back and find every mention of this briefcase to see where it was in this scene. And this was the pivotal scene, crying out loud. Anyway, that is FiveActs from Cineum Software. The other incoming toy is a completely new version of Firefox. Now you may know, because I've mentioned it quite a lot, that Firefox was my primary browser until 2-3 weeks ago. There is one feature in Firefox that drives me absolutely up the pole. I don't know what they call it now, but basically it's something like the Omnibox. It's where you put the URL, and as soon as I make that box active, ready to go somewhere, this box thing flies down and covers up the bookmarks. Does my head in. I stuck with it, but mainly because I didn't want to pollute Vivaldi. Vivaldi was my Notion host. It was my Roam host. It had all of my productivity apps open in it, and I thought you don't need to be surfing in there as well. Plus the fact, the more tabs that I've got open in a browser, then the slower that browser's going to be. But in the end, I thought, you know what, Vivaldi's where it's at, and I moved. But there is a new version of Firefox incoming 1st of June, which is next Tuesday. It's for iOS and mobile, as well as everything else. And they put this video out and they put some stuff in it, and they were saying, so what this is supposed to be showing you is all about user interaction, and that they've moved things. And I thought, oh, you've moved my cheese. And luckily I've moved to Vivaldi. But I do have Firefox now as like my primary, secondary browser, if you're with me. But what they did was they looked at the user interaction, and the purpley blue areas were like cold. So if we look at one of those purpley blue areas, which was this one here, that bit there, I thought, but that's a great thing as far as I'm concerned. This is saved to Pocket, and the ... gives you like a separate hidden menu. So you can have access to certain things, but not have them polluting the screen. I love that. People can't find it, apparently. So hence, with this last one, they're putting that Save to Pocket button on it with the extensions. I don't want it with the extensions. That's now taking up screen real estate. But that's what they're doing with it, and that's why they've decided to do it. So it's the things that people are interacting with that they want to put front and centre. There are a couple of mock-ups of what this is going to look like. Apart from the fact it's on Biggles, which for a start. But I looked at the tabs, and obviously the active tab is this dog meme thing. And I looked at the tab and I thought it looks like it's floating in midair. It doesn't look like it's attached to the page. It's kind of squarish and it doesn't look like it's attached to the page. So yeah, I don't think it looks fabulous myself, but I will reserve judgment and wait and see. What's going to impact me is the degree of configurability that you've got with it. So I'm looking at the buttons and I'm trying to imagine, okay, so the first one that we've got here, that's probably Reader View, that one down there. That looks like it's take it out to full page. This is whether it's bookmarked or not. This one has moved, so now it's taking up real estate. This one is your kind of don't let Facebook follow me anywhere button. And I've no idea what some of the others are. We will find out on Tuesday. But initial reaction, could be better in the design stakes as far as I'm concerned. But they are pushing it, as you can see. And that's it with no pages open. What I am hoping is that the Omnibar's disappeared. If that's gone, excellent. And all of that is starting on June the 1st. Which is Tuesday, like I said. And it's across the board. So it's Windows, Mac, it's Android, it's iOS, it's Linux, you name it. In fact, I got an update today from Firefox on iOS that said this is a new version. And I opened it and I thought it looks exactly the same as the old version. So we'll see. We will see what happens. Let me know if you were... what browser? What's your browser? What's your primary browser, your default one? Mine's Vivaldi. What's yours? So, let's have a look at this printing a file list from Pathfinder, shall we? This will be interesting on a screen this size. But we will persevere and we will do it. So, let me get Pathfinder open. And I probably haven't got Pathfinder open. Right, I'm going to move that out of the way while I tidy it up because it looks an absolute mess. So I need to get that tidy before we start. How many tabs shall I have open? Shall we just have the 2? Because otherwise it's going to get crazy. Right, I will be with you in 1 minute. Okay. That'll do, actually. That'll do. Let's bring that on. Let's make it full screen and show you what we've got. Right, what I've got here. Here's my audio recordings. Where we really need to be is somewhere that we can get some files. The best place for that is probably going to be in Dropbox. So I'll go to Dropbox and I will go to my projects. And one of my projects is tonight. And in the data, we've got the document library files. So here are some files. Now, the only thing that will make this, because obviously, if I were to do it at this point, it's pretty simple. All right. In here, all I need to do is Command and P. And what that will give me is a preview of what that would look like printed out. And 9 times out of 10, I want a PDF. So I would save the PDF. We'll put that on the desktop so we can see it and save it there. So over here, if I go to the desktop and we open up that file, that is what we get. So it's literally like taking a screenshot of what's there. So you might think, well, that's not actually much better than taking a screenshot, but it does get better than that, luckily. Okay, we do not have these in any folders. So what I'm going to do is duplicate this. So we will duplicate that and we'll go into it. Right, we'll put the bills together. So new folder with selection, and this will be bills. Now, if within bills you want to have a folder for mobile phone, and there is a rationale for why I'm doing this, and electric, and it's put that inside there, which annoys me. Right, electric bill in the electric folder and the mobile bill in there. Right, if we go back up, you can see we've now got files and we've got a folder there. Let's make another folder for Lola. So get those and call that Lola. Right. What we could then do, and I'm building up a folder structure here, so I'm creating a finance folder which would have the bills in it and it would have the bank transactions in it. Now, if you wanted to print that out, you'd get exactly what you're looking at. So if we do the Command and P, you're getting exactly that, but now it just looks like there's fewer files because you're not seeing the files that are inside them. But if we open these up, so we can see the bank statement and we can see the bills and we can see the 2 folders of Lola, the 2 pictures, and we do the Command and P, and we do the Save as PDF, we will stick that over the top of that and open that one up. And anything that you can see, so the 2 pictures of Lola and the bank transactions and the bills folder, anything you can see will be included in this printout. So we're kind of getting there. But the problem with this is, if you're trying to do it, imagine that in here you didn't have 10 files. You had 500 files. And you needed to open up all of these individually to get to there. You drive yourself mad. So let's fold up manually every single folder and get back to the top level. There is a fast way to do it. So you just make sure that you've got everything selected. And you have a couple of options. I did not want to do that. Go away. Now it's trying to open up everything, which was not what I was trying to do. So go away from that. Let's go back up here and into here. Right. Let's try that again, shall we? Right. It's still doing it. And yet, in rehearsals, this went perfectly. There we go. Right. So what I've done is I've held down the Option key and I've used the right arrow key. And what that's done is, you might be wondering why some things are selected and some aren't. That's by design. It's opened up every folder and every subfolder inside every folder without me having to do it. Because these could go down 20 levels. You'd be there all day. So Option and right arrow will actually open them up. Option and left arrow will close them up. And this works. So if I just do that again, the reason that they're not all selected is it retains the selection that you had. So you actually had the top level items selected and that's retained, but it's opened it up so you can actually see inside it. Now, that means you've got 7 items selected. If you were to zip those items, you would not necessarily, in this case you would be zipping the things inside the folders, but they're not selected. So if you wanted to do something that involved, opening them where they needed to be selected first, then that wouldn't work. But for printing out, it works brilliantly. So we will do the Command and P. We don't want to do that. Crying out loud. What is this doing? This all worked before. No, it's opening them. I have no idea why it's doing that, because before it wasn't. Right, shall we try another print with it? No, it's opening it. I have no idea this was working before. Don't you love a live demo? Excel's possessed. Did I mention that, Mike? I have no idea what's the matter with that. And you know what? When I did that before, and it worked, I didn't save the PDF. I thought I'll do it live. What should happen is you should be able to go to File and Print, and it will give you a printout of that, and I have no idea why it's not at the moment, because it was earlier today. So maybe Peter can give it a try, and let me know, because that's what should be happening. We may be able to revisit that later if I can work out what's wrong with it, but that's what it did earlier today. So the key to it is being able, with the Option key, to toggle these on and off, because if there were 500 files in there, you'd need to drill down to them all. So maybe it's because it's an Excel file. That's an interesting point, actually, because I don't think I had an Excel file in it before. So I did exactly the same thing, but with a different set of files, and it worked fine. So, shall we blame Excel and move on? Oh, I've been doing live demos long enough to know that, yeah, if it can go wrong, it will go wrong. But hopefully that will help you out, Peter. So let me know if that does work. Right, let's come out of there and go back into there then. Okay, so we were building a document library. In fact, we were building several. It's not particularly the documents that we're concerned about. It's the ideology of where would it be best to put your documents and why. So a document library in this circumstance is a subset of documents. It's not necessarily every document you've got. It's the important ones that you would put in a document library for a reason. So it could be like bills that you're sharing, or children's information that you're sharing, and things like that. I mean, that's why Microsoft have brought out Microsoft Teams for families this week, because things are now that complicated. I always hear from people who have children, you know, that their lives are that busy and there's that much paperwork. And I look back and I think, how did my mum and dad cope? And I don't remember dad being involved in any of it, and mum just coped. But there's a lot more to it these days. So last week we looked at Notion and building a document library in Notion in a table. So that's available on demand, MacBites After Hours 129. And we also did it in Trello. Now, the reason that we started with those ones, and I'm trying to keep it this way until we get to next week when they're not free, but those two were both free. So it could be your document library online with all your documents in it, or it could be shared and it's still free. So tonight we're continuing that theme, and we are looking at Zenkit and Craft. Now, Zenkit is free for a certain amount of boards, and Craft is free for a certain amount of blocks. So Craft is a block-based notes system. So those are the two we're going to look at tonight. Next week, we're going to look by request at DevonThink and the venerable Evernote. And yes, you can build a document library in pretty much anything. So those are the ones we're looking at next week. But we are tonight looking at Zenkit. Zenkit is reminiscent of Trello. So primarily when you go into it, you'll think, oh, Kanban, a Kanban board. But it can do a lot of other things. Zenkit are also in kind of transition at the minute in terms of they have other views and other products. Some of that comes under the paid banner, though. So what I'll be showing is going to be totally free. So let's go in and have a look at that. So somewhere I had a browser window. So let's start off with that. Don't know why you're opening that. That's not what I'm doing. I am coming over here and hiding that and going to Zenkit. Right. Now, this is what I mean by they've got different products. So initially, when we used Zenkit, we used it in 2017 to 2018 to produce the show. And what we were talking about at the time, how we did that, was this part of the product here. So Zenkit Base. That used to be Zenkit. That was the only bit of Zenkit that there was. What they've done since then is add extra bits to it. The next one to come out was Zenkit To Do. I haven't gone through and tried a free version of this and all of that, as far as I can remember. I don't think I did. But think when that came out, Wunderlist was just going. Microsoft was sunsetting it. So it was to replace apps like that. I have not looked either at ZenChat, but I would imagine was talking Slack maybe, similar to Slack. So this is where you have the boards. The to-dos are your to-do items. Having said that, you can put to-do items in Zenkit Base. So to me, it's a little bit fragmented, this. But it doesn't matter because all we're going to use is Zenkit Base. The most recent thing they've added is Hypernotes. And Hypernotes, if you've ever heard of Obsidian or Roam, Hypernotes is a pretty version of that. It only came out about 2-3 months ago. And again, I haven't bothered having a look at that yet either, because the last thing I need is another Notes app, trust me. And every time I see one, I think, oh, use case. And like Craft, that was how I ended up with Craft. So I don't particularly want another one. So Zenkit, the Zenkit suite is those 4 products at the moment. But what we're interested in is just Zenkit Base. So I'm going to hit login. And you see, it's even got different things to log into there, which you kind of not just log in. So what we're looking at here is my home base for Zenkit. And it did move from zenkit.com, as you can see, to base.zenkit.com. Right, what we used to do with this, you can see we've got 2 different distinct types of collections here. We have the stuff at the top, which is my private stuff. And then we've got this here, which is all shared with Mike. And in there, we've got multiple things. So we've got individual boards for planning things, like that blog post there. That was just a blog post. So I had multiple bits of information and I just threw them onto a Kanban board. This one was where I was actually planning multiple blog posts. Then I've got my personal toolkit, but we'll create it up here. But what we had down here was dashboards and individual shows. So these were when we did live sessions. They were all in there. So you can see this really was used. MacBites, of course, is where it's at. And just like last week when you looked in Trello, what we've got here is stories that were in the show in 2017, 2018. And there's lots of them. Lots of them. So they're all in there. The one thing that I did love about this, really loved about it, was the bright colours. So I think the default's a light background, but I much preferred a dark background with the bright colours on it. I do wish Notion's colours were more distinct. But in essence, what you've got is a Kanban board. We had to fake instructions, so meta elements, by adding an admin column. But other than the admin and the publishing column, which is this published or not, the rest of them, if you look at them, that's the welcome column, and within it you've got the welcome for the episodes, so 108, 109, 110, 111. It goes all the way down to however many we've got in there. Then you've got the next section, which is the back bites, and then the chat bites and the reality bites. So the columns that we've got are sections of the show. But you can up here, when you look at these, they're grouped by section at the moment. But what we could do is pivot them and look at the same information in a different way. So we could say show label, and away it goes. And that's giving us the same information, but now all of this column is 108 and all of the next column is 109 and so forth. You've actually pivoted that information on looking at it on a show by show basis. So how that will ripple through to our document library is the ways that we look at the document. So I will change that back to section, because otherwise I'll come back in here and think, what was I doing? Okay, so that's the kind of thing that we need to build. So let's get back to where we were. Right, so I'm going to create a completely new collection for our document library. And you get this lovely little dialog box where you can create a new collection that's completely empty. Your second option is if you've got data that you're importing from somewhere else, then you can bring that information in. And the third option is the templates and tutorials. Now, sometimes there's nothing akin to what you're trying to build. So we couldn't go to the templates and tutorials and say, yeah, build me a MacBites one. They didn't even have podcasting back then. And obviously the way we podcast is very different to most people. So I don't think it would have worked anyway. But because documents, I think there should be something about documents. So I'm going to have a look at the templates and see what there is. So you come into the templates library, and the thing that threw me in here was, why are all these circles just black? That made no sense. I thought each one would have like a different little icon. So these are the featured ones, but there's also some tutorials where you can get a board and work through the board, and it will teach you Zenkit as you go. You've got project management, which could be just tasks. Again, if you've got a board with tasks on, why do you need Zentask? I'm not sure. You've got the Eisenhower matrix, which is like a 2x2 grid of whether something is urgent and important, or just urgent, just important, and so forth. You've got a support help desk if that's what you're trying to create, your weekly team meeting agenda, and all of these, but that's nothing to do with documents. I did think on personal they might have that, because they did have weird things in here like hunting for a car. I don't think I'd build a board for that, but never mind. So again, you've got tasks, you've got a GTD thing, and dinner party menu planner. That's so not me, isn't it, Mike? Yeah. That would be like, can we just have a Chinese and be done? So again, nothing in there particularly, although you've got this file archive, so there's a possibility file archive might do it. But I carried on having a look and seeing what was in here. Because that one was impersonal, and what we're trying to build is personal, even if I find in here something else for documents, that personal one might actually be better. But there is an entire section for document management, but it's only showing file archive. And that file archive that's there is exactly the same one as you would get up here. So it's just showing them in multiple places. So let's have a look at the file archive. So it gives you a quick preview. And that is down there. So that actually, yeah, that's looking pretty decent, isn't it? That could well be what we want. What I want to do, though, before I make a decision whether I want to use it or not, you can view a larger version. So you can whip in and look at it. Now, this is quite deceptive, because I can go in here and I can look at these things. So when it says preview it, it's actually a read-only board, this. And I am actually previewing it, but you could, while you're walking around here, thinking, this is exactly what I want. This is exactly what I want. Be thinking, right, I'll start editing it, and think, I can't edit it. And you've forgotten, you haven't actually said you want to use this yet. You are only looking at a preview, but it's an interactive preview. But interactive previews are good, because it means in here, while we've got this organised by our importance, is anything just not important? Or is it just my life? You can interact with it where you can do the pivoting. So we can look at it by category. And we had some categories on ours. So now you've got something that's not categorised in contracts, receipts and letters. So it's the same information, you're just changing the view of it. So actually, that's a really good starting point. That would save a lot of work, wouldn't it? So I'm going to go back. And you do have to go back through everything that you've done, unfortunately. And I think they must have opened that in a separate page. So let's get back to where we were, which was here. Right, so yes, I want to use that one. So we have this use this template option. So we'll click on that, and what appears in my personal collections at the top is this new file archive. Now, obviously, if this is to be shared with a spouse or a family member or the entire family, you would need to create it in a shared area, which is the bit at the bottom here if I'm sharing it with Mike. But at the moment, for demonstration purposes, it'll be fine that it's up here. So click to go into it, and there is exactly what we were working with before. Now it does look different because it doesn't have the background that it had before, because I said this is what I want mine to look like. So can we in here? I don't really want to do that. I want to lose that. Right. So I've got the important, the less important, the not important. I have the ability up here to repivot it by category. So I've got exactly what I had in that template. Only now I can actually work with it, because before I couldn't do much with it. And you may need to make some changes here. So we've got contracts and receipts and letters, but we don't have bills or finance. So I'll put finance in there. And that's added me an extra category. There's nothing in it yet, but if I want to add an item, automatically at the bottom, you've got the option to add an item. So we had the mobile bill, didn't we? So let's put the mobile bill in there. Now, this that we're looking at that says mobile bill is identical to the letters and the receipts and the contracts. It just doesn't have any metadata. Now, by metadata, the opportunity to add the metadata is there. So these bright colours that we've got with the tags, the opportunity to add them is there. So I can add importance. So important, less important, not important. That one's going to be important. So I can add that metadata and it instantly appears in here. So I have the ability to, but I've not actually specified anything at the moment. So let's go back in here. Now, one thing is you'll notice as you click on an item, it opens up in this sidebar, which may or may not drive you insane. That depends on the width of the screen, the size of the screen, but you do have an option to show us a pop-up instead. And what that does is pop it up in the middle of the screen. Now, again, you will either love that or loathe that, because when it's popped up like that, you can't interact behind. So you would then have to come out of there and click another one. You do have the ability up here to navigate like that, but you can't actually see the board behind it. So that's why the default up here is to show us a side panel. And then you can still scroll sideways in the area to the left. Now, we've got some information in there, so let's go back to our mobile bill. It had a category of finance because we added the column, and then we added the item to the column, and that populated the category metadata. Right, you can add a description in for that, which, you know, for a mobile bill doesn't really need much, does it? But let's say it's O2. I've already put the importance as important, and then we can put a date in. Now, the date, what's the date? Is that the date it arrived? Is it the date it's due to be paid? That's up to you. There's just one date in here at the moment, and it doesn't specify what kind of date it is. It's not saying it's the payment date or anything else, but you can have as many dates as you like. So let's say for us, we'll treat it as the payment date, and we'll say the 10th. Okay, so we've got a date in there now. But what we don't have is the actual bill. So we've got this files option here, and you have the option to add a file. Now, you can either drag or drop the file if it's a local file or somewhere that you've got a local mount point of. You can select a file, which will crank up the file open dialog. You can automatically get them from Dropbox or Google Drive or Box. You can put a link in, or you could add a drawing. Now, in essence, what we need to do is add a file. So if I hit on select file and we go in here, our data is not in there, it's in there. And it's the first copy of that, and we're looking for that mobile bill. So I've navigated to it and found it all, and OK. And that has then added that to it. Now, you're not limited to one file. If you wanted to have one card in the finance column that represented all of the mobile bills, you could do that. But before you think about doing that, do remember that you've got this date field. And I personally think it's probably better to have one bill or one item per card, per item in the column. But you may still need to add multiple files, because I don't know about you, but when the bank send me a statement, oh, they go to town. There's the statement, and then there's a letter about the statement, and then there's a thing about saying, do you want to go paperless? And the answer to that is no. And then there's all the rest of the stuff that comes with it that you may choose to scan and then put on here. You might be wondering why I would get a bank statement if I'm going to scan it and put it in here. But I also keep that bank statement because all this paperless business is fine. But you're going to need at least 2 items, 2 areas that are not paperless, because really they should have sorted this out by now. But the first sign of you wanting anything else, they want proof of identity, and they won't take a virtual copy. They want it paper. So you couldn't make it up, could you? So that's why I have them sent the old-fashioned way. Carrier pigeon with a stamp. So I would then add these extra ones there, but I wouldn't put another bill. I wouldn't put another mobile bill in there. I would add an extra card for it. So let's add some pickies to it. So we don't have a personal thing in here yet. So we'll add a category. I can either call that Lola or personal. And what I'm going to do is add some pictures of Lola. So let's say these 2 photographs were taken on a certain day. And what was she up to? Oh, she was at the polling station on the sofa. So let's say Lola on polling day. Now, this is a good example of, I go into here, are they important? Well, of course they're important. They're Lola, so definitely they're important. And I'm going to put a date on it. When was polling day? I think it was the 6th of May. And I'm going to add a file. But the thing is, there's 2 files. So it may well be easier to drag these files and put them in there. And as I hover over that file, if I go up here, oh, actually it's doing it all over the place. That's good. Right, it's adding them. So it's actually uploading both of them at the same time. And because of the file format, they're actually giving you a preview of them as well, which is kind of cool. You can also use that if you want to have some, like a preview image on the card if you want to. So that one you've got 2 of. Okay, you can close that then and go back here so you can see all of your columns. And then I've just got the rest of the stuff to add in, which is fairly straightforward, isn't it? But I'm pretty sure I still don't have personal, do I? I would probably put receipts with finance. So if I do that and I drag that over there, that will recategorise those as finance. That will leave receipts blank because I don't particularly want receipts. I want them in with finance. But I can quickly go into there and you can see you get list name and I can put a new name for it. So one thing that I do need here is household. Let's put household in there. Come on, back you go. Right. Okay, so that's just renamed that column, which is also a piece of metadata. And what do I have for that? Well, household-wise, I've got the washing machine instructions. So we'll add something for that. And what else did I have household? Christmas cards, the Christmas card list. So let's put that in, Christmas card list. Okay, I'm going to open up this first one. And again, I'm just going to drag it in. So I've got them in here. There is the Christmas card list. Drag it over to there and drop it. There is the instructions for the washing machine. Drag and drop those in. But is that the right thing to do? No, because the Christmas cards are on the other one. So we definitely don't want to do that. So if I click on that, we can get rid of that. And I do want to delete it. To go into the Christmas cards here and add the Christmas cards to that. Got hold of them and drop them. Now this is something that you might want to put a description on, because anything you put in here would also be searchable. So it may be that this is for a certain number of years or something like that. Maybe it's an archive thing. So you could put a description in there. When am I going to need to be thinking about that? Probably November at some point. I think I better make it early November, because what happens to me is it's like, oh, it's the end of October, and before I know it, it's Christmas Day. And it's like, oh, the cards. So I probably want that quite early, to be honest. At the moment, it's less important, but I may decide to recategorise that nearer the time. I also might want to add some information to this. So what other information might be particularly useful in relation to a document? Because you can add meta elements. So at the bottom you have this ability to add. You could add a checklist, which would give you, like, if the task was publish MacBites, you could have a checklist for every item you needed to do inside the item, which was what we used to do. A repeater is where you've got a repeating task. So you could add the ability, if it was something that you needed to do monthly, then you could add that. But as you can see, it says plus, which means that's paid for. But you could add a reminder to it and then just manually do the repeating thing. So those are the three options that you've got, but you also have the ability to create a custom field. So if it's not one of those three things that you actually want, you can click on the add an item. Right, what would we want this to be? Right, now it's telling you at the top, before we actually do it, that adding a field to a collection or changing an existing field will affect every item. And what it means is every one of these cards on this board has to have the same metadata. That is actually good news, because if you defined what the card needed to look like at the beginning, and then you thought, I've missed a field, you do not want to have to go through 50 records to add it to individual records. So you are redefining every card by making changes in here. Right, let's say we want this to be like an archive. You then choose, this is just the title of it, the label for it. You then choose in the type what type of field you want, and you have a range of options. So you've got plain text. You'd use a number if you want to do some kind of calculations with it. You could put a link to something. You could put another date in. So we could have a date it arrived and a date we want the bill paying from those circumstances. But remember, not everything in here would have a payment date, because not everything is that financial kind of information. You've got checkboxes, labels, a formula. You can add members to it. That would be where you are assigning it to somebody. So, you know, Mike, can you pay this bill? Files you've already seen, because we've got some. You can create a reference to another item. So if you wanted to cross-reference two bills, you could do that. You've got sub-items where you can build a hierarchy. You've got dependencies between them, or you could actually aggregate them together. So that's where you would take multiple values and create an aggregation with them. In Notion, that's called a roll-up. But what we want here is checkbox, because it's either archived or it's not. You can set the default then. So this option at the bottom that you've got, check by default, depends on what you have, what type you've selected. So if we go for text, you can see you can choose the editor type. If we go for a number, you can create a default number and you can choose a format for it. So what is at the bottom depends on the data type you've selected above it. So I'm going to go for a checkbox. I'm not going to have that check by default because I want to say whether I want this document archived or not. And create. And it creates it down here where it says archive. And I can check that. And as I check that, you can see up here, there, that is toggling on and off. I do not want to do that. I want to do that. Okay, that is toggling on and off there. But if we open up some of these, it's there with that one as well. There is the ability to archive it there as well. Let's just check that. Unfortunately, this still has the Notion issue, but Notion fixed their issue, which is you can see the checkbox when it's checked. You cannot see it when it's not checked, which tells you this is not interactive. So if I've got something else showing, like the letter from Cedric, and I go over here thinking I'll just unarchive that, it will change what's selected on the right-hand side. That is not interactive where it will toggle on and off. In Notion, it is. So that's just one of the things you might want to think about when you're choosing where to put these documents. So that's what we've got in there. Now, at the moment, that is only pivotable by category or importance. So let's add something else to one of these things, which will add it to them all. So we'll go to add and we'll add a custom field. This time we will make it, and this won't actually work too well, to be honest. because they're all going to be assigned to me, aren't they? Because it's only me. There's only me in this space. But we'll add it anyway. Okay, show you that. So when I click on there, any member that is in this board, you can actually allocate it to them. So if we go up there and do the same, because pretty much this is all going to be my work, isn't it? But what happens is that is also added to it. You then get the person's avatar added to it. So it's a very nice visual way of working with all of this. Very nice. And that is pretty much all there is to it. What I was going to show you, which is tricky with just one person, is adding another pivot point. So in the category here, you can now pivot by member. And what that will give you is the two that are allocated to me, but these aren't allocated to anybody. But if I'm dealing with a mobile phone bill, it's pretty simple to add all of these. And if there was another member, now will this actually add a member? Oh, there he is. Look at that. There he is. So let's, oh, look at this. I'll keep the Lola one, but Mike can have all the bills. Jim is definitely Mike. That's nothing to do with me at all. Neither of us have got a grandma, have we? Who's lasted longest? Mine. So I'll take that one. You can have the one from Cedric. So it's not just a case of pivoting it as like a visual thing. You can actually then use that to allocate documents, right and left, etc. And you can do that with any field that supports it. Okay, so if we go back into this mobile bill and we add a custom field and we add in here what we got the option to add, labels. All right. So at the moment it's saying there's no labels in here. So we will add a label. So what shall we have with this? We could do it by year. We could add some years to it. So if I add a label, right, we'll put 2019 and then we'll add, and then we'll have 2020 and we will add, and 2021. I'm not going to get ambitious with 2022. Not the way the last couple of years has gone. Right, so I'll put in there year. And what I mean by year is not, I'm not putting redundancy in because these have already got years on some of them. It's the year that is like I'm going to file it by, basically. So at the moment, there's nothing selected, but when I click it, I can choose a year for it. So if I go into my Christmas card list and go down here, I'll have that 2020, that can't be 2021 yet, can it? And go in there and pick another year. Okay. Because of the data type, which is these labels here, you can actually see them as labels. It means I can go up here and now I've added another way to pivot the data. So we've got 2019, 20, 2021. Let's add these over here. I know all the dates are wrong, but never mind. We're just organising them like this. So it's just different ways to organise your data. Everything that you see there is totally free of charge. There is a mobile app. It's really good on mobile. If you think about how these Kanban views are dealt with, they're perfect for the phone because you can just swipe left, swipe right. That sounds like Tinder, doesn't it?
It does. I was just thinking.
Not that I would understand that. But you can. It's a nice way to work. Rather than something like Obsidian and Rome and their content, it's a bit tricky on a phone because it's text and you don't have that kind of physicality to work with. But you certainly do with Notion up to a point. You do with Trello and you do with Zenkit. So if primarily you're working with somebody on a phone, maybe this is the right way to choose. I'm just going to show you over this series 6 ways to do it. And then at the end, we will do a comparison as to when you might want to use which individual way. So have we had any questions about that?
Dee says, I feel so unimportant that I can get by with Apple Notes. The measure of a person is how many notes apps they need. Elaine is queen.
I try and keep it down, I do. I mean, Zenkit is now archived for us. We would not turn around and say, oh, the best place for us to do that is Zenkit. We very nearly bought into Zenkit. It was just the fact they didn't reply to a support ticket. And I said, why would I be giving them money if they're not replying to a support ticket? We were using Zenkit completely for the show, and I tried Notion, so I guess this does feed into what Dee's saying, which is, it wasn't broken in Zenkit, but I saw shiny Notion. And I must admit, my first thought was, when I tried Notion, it's going to be nowhere near as good as Zenkit, because the Kanban view is an afterthought. The initial view is a table view. But when I tried it, I thought, this is fabulous. So I said to Mike, can we try one show in it? We'll just try one show. But, I'm leaving Zenkit where it is. And we did, and we never looked back. So this is an archive for us, but I wouldn't say never. It's going to depend on whether this is the right way to work. So if all of a sudden we had to share 50,000 documents with Mike's mother, Notion is not somewhere that I think Mike's mother would be comfortable. So this might be way easier for her. She could have like read-only view of the board, and it's nice and bright and coloured, and it's all organised. It's hard to go wrong. So I won't ever say never, but we didn't just leave it there with like, and I'm going to carry on using Zenkit as well. So I do try and keep it down, but you're right. I'm very bad. I just keep adding them, don't I? Oh, that's a good point, Peter. I am indeed building a second brain. Oh, if you saw my roam, you would see a second brain. Trust me on that. Oh, I'm loving Peter. Apple Notes I get by scribbling on the back of a fag packet. That's the ultimate organisation. I still have Post-it notes. Renee says, thank goodness we're not ashamed to admit it. Nothing wrong with that. Maybe you just don't have the items that I have to deal with. The number of shows and incoming things and 200 emails a day and that kind of thing. Who knows? I'd much rather be in your position than my position. Put it like that. Okay, so that was Zenkit. Building it in Zenkit. Right, next thing we're going to do. We are going to do the same, but we're going to do it in Craft and see what you can do in Craft. Now, if you are unaware, Craft is billed as a block note-taking app. So they are pushing it for notes, but they're also pushing the block aspect of it. Now, when I say block, what that means is each individual chunk of information that you add into Craft is considered to be one block, be it one paragraph, one bullet point, one graphic. It's all just a block. So Notion works exactly the same. The theory of Notion is it's block-based, and so is Craft. Difference between the two? Craft is beautiful. It is gorgeous, and it is so smooth on an iPad. The ability to work with Craft is the same, identically the same, on iOS and desktop. With Notion, less so. My primary use for Craft, I tried it, and it was the reason that I tried it was this offline business when Notion ate my notes for 5 hours and I was hyperventilating, about to take a crowbar to it. And I thought, well, there's Roam. Yeah, that's in the cloud. And there's Evernote. That's in the cloud. Oh, every single thing I thought of was in the cloud. Craft has an offline capability, which is like, that's what I need. So my show notes that I'm working from tonight, which I must admit, I'm still on the printing from Pathfinder thing. But the notes I'm working with tonight are in Craft. On my iPad, split screen with the chat from YouTube. And it works great. So that's my use for it. I haven't built my own document library in it, but we will go and do that right now. Okay, now Craft will work in a browser if you want to work with it in a browser. But there is also the app. So we will get rid of the browser and we will bring on the app over here. Now, where are we putting it? That's a good point, isn't it? Right, what I'll do is create a space for it and then bring it on. Okay, so this is what we've got in here. Now, this is my personal system. If you remember, you have your own personal space and you can create spaces to share with other people. So this one is our shared space. This one is my private space, and Mike has his private space that I can't see. Obviously, it's private. So we're looking at my personal space at the moment. I have my standard para setup, which is 0 for the inbox, and then projects, areas, resources, and archive. We're not going to need any of that today. But my document library, if I were doing this correctly, would be in resources. The document library would be... would it be a project? Only when I'm building it. Only when I'm building it would it be a project. After that, it would either be a global resource, which would go in resources, or if it was a document library for MacBites, then the document library itself would sit inside one of these areas. So MacBites is an area, and it would sit inside that. That's a folder, and this folder could be moved inside the MacBites folder. But we will leave it where it is at the moment, at the top. Right, so first thing we're going to need is, in this case, we're not using anything like a Kanban board or anything like that. Craft does have other options, and that's what we'll look at. So in here we can create a new subfolder, which is the first thing we would need to do. Now this is going to depend, what do you create for the subfolder? That depends on how you want it to be organised. Do you actually need a subfolder? Now, one thing you could do is create some folders and say, I'll have this one for finance. And you can spend hours playing around in here. Have we got something financy? We do. We've got a wallet. Or a credit card. That'll do nicely. And then you can create it. So what you would have in here is a collection of folders. So you just rinse and repeat, create a subfolder. And let's put the household in there. And I'm sure there's a pretty house icon. Must be. There we go. And do that. Now, is that the best way to go? Well, the thing to think about if you're going to do that is ultimately what you're trying to get in here is documents. So don't think in terms of how am I going to build this document library? What's the best way to store this information? That's the wrong question. The right question is, when am I going to want to find this information, and what am I going to want to do with it? Now, for things like household, it could be reference. You could build this down. We may consider, although we probably wouldn't, but you might, that Lola is part of the household. She'll be disgusted now that there's a little paw print. Right. But you could do that. Now, the good thing with this is if you've done this and then you put your Lola bits in. Right, what Lola bits are we putting in here? Well, we had a couple of pickies, didn't we? So we got our Lola at the polling station thing. But if I drop that, it doesn't add it. If I hover over the folder, it doesn't add it. Why not? And this is because of the way it works. It's a block-based system. So everything has to exist within a page. So do we want a Lola page or do we want a Lola folder? Because if we do it this way, and we've got 2 Lola pictures, we would have to add page 1, so Lola pick 1, which it will be in the Lola folder, but then we need to add Lola pick 2. Hang on, wrong way, we need to Command and N. And then that one would be Lola pick 2. Not the best way to go. Not the best way to go at all. But if you want to do it that way, you can do it that way. So we've got a placeholder now. Now we can drag and drop Lola's picky in it. And we can go to the next one by going back to the folder and opening up Lola pick 2. This was her disgusted on the sofa because it was raining. Right, and we've got that in there. So when we go back to the Lola folder, we've got pick 1 and we've got pick 2. So it's not wrong to put them in a folder because you get this lovely view, don't you? But you don't have to do it that way. There's an alternative way. So if we go back up to household, let's ignore this Lola folder. Let's make a new page and we'll call it Lola. And what we could do at this point is add the picky in here and add the second picky in there. And now Lola things are on Lola's page. It depends how you're going to want to work with it. And that is difficult to do at the beginning. So think of this as just rapid prototyping. You're throwing something together, and if it doesn't work down the line, redesign it. Because that's what we all do with things like Notion. If you'd have seen Notion the day I started with it, it doesn't look anything like Notion looks now. Every 12 weeks, and I do try and be strict with myself with that, every 12 weeks I redesign Notion. Not that there's anything wrong with it the way it is, I'm adding improvements to the system. But I have long since stopped dropping everything and doing it now. What I will do is I will add it to a note. In fact, what I would actually do with it, I'd be in Rome and I'd think about it, and I would put a time and date stamp in Rome, and I would put thinking of adding an extra element into Notion. This came up in response to. So I would give this idea of why I think something needs to be changed complete context, and then walk away and leave it alone. And then at the end of each quarter, I would search Rome for the tag of, Notion update, Notion reconfiguration, recalibration, whatever you want to call it. And it would bring up every time that I've made a note like that. Each one would be time and date stamped. And as long as I've been a good girl, the exact precise context of what changes I need to make, or I thought I needed to make, at that point will be there. And I'll just work through them one at a time. Now, in here, what do you want to do? It depends. It really depends. I mean, you could add a million pictures of Lola and just keep scrolling down. But it may be better to go back to the folder way if you wanted to have this kind of view. Having said that, what you've got in here, so let's go into the page itself. What you've got in here, you've got images. But this is block based. So there would be nothing to stop me organising it by putting in, that's the polling station, and that's on the sulking on the sofa. There we go. Right. Now, these at the moment they're blocks. You get the domino icon next to them, and you can move them around. They're just blocks. The pictures are blocks, the text is blocks. But you can take it a step further than that, because these can be turned into other things. So we have over here our sidebar, and there'd be nothing to stop us turning something like this into a title, making it bold, turning it into a to-do item, a toggle, whatever you want to turn it into, including a card. So if I make that a card, I get to choose the size of it, whether it's a square or whether it's full width, sulking on the sofa, full width, or even that I can see the entire thing. So let's say I think that's kind of cool, or that's kind of cool. Right, so I choose this one. The next thing I can choose is a colour for it. Now Lola's favourite colour is red. All her leads and paraphernalia are red, and that's the nearest I've got to red. And then apply it. And what's happened is it's taken just plain text, but remember that plain text is a block. But it's taken just the plain text and turned it into a nested thing where I can double click on that. And if we follow the breadcrumb trail, we're in Lola, but we're in a new block called Sulking on the Sofa. Right, which means when we're in Sulking on the Sofa, we could actually drag in Sulking on the Sofa. And when we go back, we can see a preview of Madam Sulking on the Sofa. And we could do exactly the same with that. Turn it into a card, choose the card type, choose the colour. Should we have a different colour? Let's have that colour, just for a change. That's the polling station one. Go into there and add that. So it's very, very flexible. What you need to be thinking about is how you would want to find this information, not necessarily what's easiest at the point of collection, because often easy at the point of collection is completely unintuitive when you come to find something.
There's a question in the chat.
Okay, what we got?
Sarah says, do you know if you can have an image with text to the side rather than underneath it?
Not at the moment, it doesn't have columns. But they are bringing out updates every 2 to 3 weeks, and I'm sure they'll get there. But not at the moment. I guess a workaround for that... no, not even a dirty hack at the moment. You just literally cannot put something side by side. But that will come. I'm sure it will come. Any other questions?
No.
Oh, look at Tony. Tony was bigging up Apple Notes for ages. But now he's in good notes and he's a happy boy. So really it's a matter with this of just thinking about how you want to work with the data. How would you want to find it? I'm just giving you like the 19 different ways that you've got to do this. What I would say with Craft is it can do it. You can see it can do it. And you've got lots of options to choose precisely how you do it. But it's very, very different to something like Trello or Notion or Zenkit. It's much more manual. You think about it. In the household, we've got 2 items. In there, we've got Lola. So let's drill down. Right, we've got this Lola pick. What if I wanted to put that in finance? Now, I can drag and drop it, and it moves it. And there it is. But there's less in the way of metadata, and you've just moved it. Where is it now? You don't have that kind of overview that you have with the board-based systems. But if Craft is where you're at, you know, and you're happy with Craft, then it can certainly do it. It's just, although it's the same thing, it's a document library, it's implemented in a very, very different way. This is why when, you know, I listen to people that are talking about productivity apps or note-taking apps, and it's like somebody will explain something that they've done in Rome. And the next question is, can I do that in Evernote? And I always think to myself, and I said this to Mike earlier tonight, you could probably get a screw in the wall with a hammer, but why would you? Evernote, the reason that I don't have one tool. Do I think there'll ever be one tool? Highly unlikely. Because a multi-tool can do a multitude of things, but none of them particularly in terms of excellence. So I do remember going to put some flowers on my grandmother's grave. And we got there and we're trying to get these flowers out. And Mum said, they've got some wire wrapped around this. And she literally had nothing. She was in a position where she didn't have anything to get the wire off. And she said, if I'd have known, I'd have done this at home. I, on my car keyring, had a Swiss Army knife. So I said, it's all right, I've got a pair of scissors here. So I get the Swiss Army knife out. Yeah, we needed a new Swiss Army knife when we'd finished. We did actually manage to cut through this wire, but the Swiss Army knife had seen better days by the end of it. So, moral of that story, by all means use what you've got if you are particularly happy with it, comfortable with it, and it does exactly what you need. But for me, I have a tool stack, and one set of notes would be in Rome because it makes sense. Another set would be in Notion because that makes sense. So if we take the 3 that I use primarily, Rome is where notes go. The reason is the speed of capture. Rome is open. I just put a date stamp, a timestamp, and just start typing. That's it. I'm done. In Notion, I would have to go and find the place that note should live, because the only alternative I've got is to just capture it to Notion, and there's a black hole. I'll never find it again, because I would have to set time aside to file it. In Rome, there's no concept of filing, thank the Lord. So you just find everything. But if I was presenting and I need a running order in front of me like I do now, Rome? No. Is the short answer. Not really the place to be. No. I couldn't add any links, like embeds in it that I could interact with. No, it's not the way to go. Notion I've been using. But the problem I've got with Notion is if Notion goes down, then I've got nothing. I've got no backup. I've got nothing offline. And I want to interact with it in a smooth kind of way. And if it goes offline, it's still going to work. And that's why I use Craft. So there's 3 primary tools that I use. But obviously, having tempted Tony into the GoodNotes world, I've also got GoodNotes. But that is strictly for handwritten notes, which I do use when I'm sketching something out and I'm trying to plan it. Then I will go to that. You could say mind mapping, same thing. It's a collection of tools, each one of which excels in the thing it excels in. And I just use all of them. Just like you don't go in and buy a wrench and then try and do every household job with it. You go in and you buy a toolkit, and there are tools perfect for each individual job. Unlike my father, who had a drill. He loved drills, didn't he? When I say he had a drill, he bought a new one every 6 months, never drilled a hole with it. My mother wouldn't let him. She'd been there, done that before, got the T-shirt and the scars to prove it. But he just loved drills. I saw him work for years, and every job he touched was a living nightmare. Until the day I took over all the woodwork things that Mum wanted. And I picked up this drill, and then I'm looking for drill bits. And I'm looking at the drill bits, and I'm thinking, why are the numbers on the side? What do they mean? Because Dad, he just picked up any drill bit. And if the hole needed to be bigger, he'd kind of wiggle the drill a bit. If it needed to be smaller, then he had to refill the hole with some plaster. I'm thinking, numbers, cool. What do they mean? And it was the size of the drill bit. I then picked up the roll plugs to put in the wall, and they too had numbers on them that matched the drill bits. I'm like, whoa, this is radical, because Dad never worked like that, and I didn't realise it was that organised. And that's how I think of my toolkit. It's like, this is best for that, and that app is best for something else. So would I personally put a document library in Craft? I don't think I would, but I would put documents in it. Let's have a look what I do with it, and it does that very well. Here's some stuff. Look at that, needs finishing. That's fabulous of me. Right, if we go in there, you can see in here, I've got some stuff for next week, all coming up. But in here, I've got the stuff for tonight, and each one is a little card, and the information that I need is inside it. So I would then scroll up and down with it when I'm working with it. And it's just easier on an iPad to do that. It's just beautiful. That's how I organise for the show. Another one might be, if we go in here, oh, we've got lots of stuff in there. I think it's the Sunday sessions. And we had, what was the last one? It was that one, wasn't it? We have all of the stuff in here, the links, so it's easy for Mike. And then all of the questions that you ask, Mike puts in here so I can follow up with them. So everything is in there. That's how we work with it. Could we do that in Notion? Yes. Would it be as smooth? No. Could it go from under us during a live session? Oh, yes. Would I put it in Rome? No. No. It's too work product to put in Rome. Rome needs ring fencing and protecting. Don't put rubbish in Rome. So, multiple copies of these links and stuff. No, it wouldn't go in Rome. It could, but in my mind, it doesn't belong in Rome yet. At what point would I put that in Rome? When the Sunday sessions for May are dealt with, I may well take all of those links and put them in there. But at the moment, no. It's too much of a work in progress, and it's not multiplayer. But that is how you could do it in Craft if you wanted to. If you wanted to, you could. Right, let's move on.
2 questions.
Okay.
Carol says, if you work alone, is there a benefit to creating a document library rather than just using Finder?
Well, you're putting overhead on everything. So from that perspective, no. But there's 2 reasons it might benefit you. Just what I've said about Rome. In terms of don't put rubbish in Rome. Your file system has 1 million files in it, all kinds of stuff. Whereas what may go in a document library is like curated content. That's not curated in terms of, this is a better letter than that letter. Curated in terms of, this is what I need to reference all the time. So I'm going to very carefully curate it and put it in this document library. The other reason is, if you use any of the systems that I'm looking at, and the 6 that we're looking at, which is Evernote, Devonthink, Zenkit, Craft, Trello and Notion, you would have access to exactly the same files in exactly the same location when you're out and about on your mobile devices. So it becomes completely cross-platform. So for those 2 reasons, you might. But other than that, if there's no benefit to having access when you're out and about, if we are ever out and about again, then no. Don't take the time, because, all you're doing is just curating stuff rather than actually creating. So hopefully that explains that. We got anything else?
Yeah, Martin says, have you ever looked at Tinderbox?
Yes, I have, and it's very, very interesting. I think it's about a year ago, and I started using it, and it was very nice. But I love the simplicity of Roam and the speed that I can work. What I've found over the years when I'm working is, it's like, I start working, it's like, oh, no, I need to do this. Oh, no, now that needs configuring. Or I need to create a style for it. So something along those lines. I'm working with something, and what I want to do, I have to do something else before I can do that thing. That interrupts my workflow to such a degree, it makes working a nightmare, not a pleasure. With something like Roam, and it doesn't have to be Roam, it could be Obsidian, it doesn't matter. There's Remnote, there's Athens, there's a million of them. But network thought note-taking, basically, it's frictionless. I don't have to do anything else before I do something else. So if I'm throwing a running order together, and I mention feature 1, 2 and 3, and there's pages already set up for it, and I'm just link, and everything's great. And I come on to point 4, and it's like, oh no. I now need to capture another thought that's related to it, because I've got to do that. I've got to do 3A now before I can do 4. Roam, Obsidian, etc. lets me do that in line. I don't have to go somewhere else and create an item in a database like Notion and then put meta the life out of it, because if I don't meta the life out of it, I'm going to lose it. And then finally put the thought in there that I had, because by then, trust me, I would have forgotten it. But even if I get to all that, by the time I get back to where I was when I was thinking about point 4, I've lost it. And more than I've lost it is the kind of feeling that it gives me of friction. It's just, right, I've done that now, but now I'm cranky. So what's happened with me with Roam is, even if I'm not sitting there deep in thought, writing a Zettelkasten piece, a Zettel, the speed that I can link things together just makes it all worthwhile. So hopefully that gives you some idea. We've already decided tonight people want to see Obsidian, so we will definitely look at network note-taking. Roam might blow your mind, but Obsidian's prettier. Although you can make Roam pretty, Obsidian is probably prettier. But yes, I did look at Tinderbox. It's a really interesting concept. But again, it's that friction. It's the speed that I can put stuff in that makes a difference to me. Right, got any other questions?
Nope.
Okay. Well, Carol's had a look at that as well. Found it confusing. I've actually seen somebody Zettel in it. There's a video on YouTube that I looked at when I was looking at it. And I watched this video. I think I watched it twice, and I thought, that's fascinating. And it really was a fascinating concept, but now I've seen Zetteling in Roam, again, it's although it's got lovely diagrams and links and stuff like that, no, I probably wouldn't. I might try it for a particular project if the project demanded that kind of interaction between elements. But other than that, no. But I do actually have that, and I have actually used it, yes. Okay, we were heading off, weren't we? We were heading to Excel land. Where guess what? Ooh, unicorns. Mike told me it's okay to mention unicorns because he has a unicorn on his timeline. So, are you ready to rock and roll, Mike?
I am ready.
Right, let me get your screen captured. Mouse pointer's vanished yet again. This mouse pointer needs nailing down. Okay, they can see your screen.
Right, I will start in that case. What I'm going to do is I'm going to build a timeline. Now, there's a number of different ways you could build a timeline. You could do it with the shapes. So you can do insert shapes, and then you can just use the shapes to draw the timeline and add the elements on. But I'm going to do it with Smart Art, which I showed you a couple of weeks ago. I did notice in the chat earlier, Kim asked if this could be done on a Mac, and yes, it can. So I'm using Excel for Windows, but it can also be done on Mac. Renee says unicorn overkill. Okay, this is the last week of the unicorns.
No!
Yeah, because it's getting a bit, what's it now, isn't it? The joke's wearing a bit thin.
You can't say that about unicorns.
Oh, whatever. Okay. So what this is sales information for a company, and you'll see the company in a minute. So these are the years, these are the revenues, and I've combined the data together from A and B using a formula into column C, because I want to put those headings on the timeline. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you where we're heading. Instead of just starting with a blank, this is where we're heading. So timeline 1 is the completed version. And it's for a company called Unicorn Clothing, who are a little startup. They started off in 2015 selling a small selection of t-shirts. And then in 2018, as their revenue increased, they raised money on the stock exchange. And then as COVID hit, they had a dip in revenue, but they're still there. So this, as I say, this is a timeline with a bit of a difference. It's not your typical timeline. You can, as I said, create a typical timeline just by using the shapes. I did think of doing that, but then I decided no, this is going to be a bit of a one with a difference. Peter has said, no, Tony it is. I'm trying to read through my microphone. Tony said roadkill. I think that's Lola might like that.
Oh,
because
she has no sense.
She did like a squirrel that she found.
I'm sure she did.
That's the closest she's ever got to a squirrel. I think that was the same with Maya as well. Anyway, let's go to timeline 2. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hide the grid lines by going to View and taking the tick off grid lines. That just gives me a canvas that's not got the grid lines as a distraction. Then I'm going to go to Insert and Smart Art and go to the Process section. And the one I want to use is Basic Chevrons, which is that. But you know, I think quite a few of these could be used as timelines. So it's just a case of looking to see what's available. I think I'll go for Basic Chevrons and then click OK. So there is my Basic Chevrons. What I want to do is I want to add 3 more chevrons because I want to have, I've got 6 years there, so I want 6 bits of the timeline, and it gives me 3 by default. Now if I click that little arrowhead that is just to the left of the chevrons, it opens up the panel which we get whenever we do Smart Art, and we can just type in there to add some text. So I'll add text, not test, text, 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 one more text. There we go. So I've got 6. Each one gets smaller only because of the size of this block. But let's close that and make it bigger. All right, there we go. Something like that will do. Now, as I mentioned last time, Tony didn't know that you could take the grid lines out. It is cool. I do it all the time, Tony, when I'm not using a spreadsheet as a grid just for displaying data. So when I'm doing any kind of graphics, dashboard, anything like that, I just think it does look better with a blank canvas. So I'm glad you learnt something there. Right, yeah. I want to be able to pick up each one of those formulas and put them into each one of these chevrons. Problem is that you can't do that when they are Smart Art. So I need to convert that Smart Art into shapes. And to do that, with the Smart Art selected, click on Smart Art Design, Convert to Shapes. So they are now shapes. The reason that two of them haven't got text in is because they were they're not true. Let's just undo that and bring back the little drawer, as it's called. They are actually text placeholders, whereas those I actually typed text into, and you can tell that because of the square brackets. So if I just replace all of them with the word text and then convert them to shapes, there we go, that's better. I then want to add the formulas, so click on the first shape, click in the formula bar, type in equals, and pick up that cell there. Okay, I'll do the formatting shortly. I'm just going to go through and rinse and repeat for the others, making sure I press the right key. Equals, so this should be 2017, which is that one, and then equals 2018, which is that one, and then equals 2019, and select that one, and oops, I missed the equals 2020. There we go. Okay, so I want to format them, so I'm going to click on that one and let's change the, I think 14 points actually is okay. So let's keep it at 14 points, which is what it's currently set to, but I'm going to change the text to white. And I could change the colour of the chevron as well. So we could have that as green. There we go. And rather than me doing the same thing all the way through, manually setting the colours and the fonts and stuff like that, if I click on that chevron, double click the format painter, I can then just click on each one of these. The reason you double click the format painter is because it keeps it active after you've then clicked on the shape that you want to paint onto. So then click it again. Okay, so Rene says once you convert them to objects you can't add chevrons. No, you can't, because they've become individual shapes. I don't think you can change them back to Smart Art either. Okay, so then I'm going to add a rectangle, because if I go back to my finish one, you can see I've actually got a rectangle behind all those shapes. So if I go to Insert Shapes and just draw a rectangle, it will stick the rectangle in the front, but with the rectangle selected I can go to Shape Format and Send to Back. So take that to the back. I can also change the colour, so let's have it as a light colour, and remove the outline. Okay, so at least we've got some coloured background to it. I also want to group it with the timeline. So if I select the timeline, I know it's 6 separate shapes, but they're still in this one container, so I can just select them all in one go, hold the shift key down to select the rectangle I've just drawn, and then go to Shape Format, Group, and that way it's now a single group. I then want to add a text box at the top, so Insert Text Box, and that's what I'm going to use for my title. So I will draw the text box. I could have put the text in a cell and then merged the cells, but I just think it's better to do it as a text box, because then it's a little bit more flexible. So the text is going to be unicorn clothing, a startup success, and let's format that Let's make that 32 points. Center it vertically and horizontally. And let's change the background color of the text box. Shape fill. There we go. That's a bit dark actually. I want the lighter one. That's better. Then I want to stick the unicorn logo over here. So go to Insert Icons. Search for unicorn. Let's go for that one there and insert it. With it selected, let's change its color. Graphics fill. And luckily it remembers the fact that I used pink a few weeks ago. But if I didn't have pink there, I can go to more fill colors and select it. And I'll also have the unicorn pointing the other way by going to graphics format, rotate, flip, horizontal, and drag and drop it up there. Okay, as Peter says, could you not add more smart art and convert if you wanted to add chevrons? You could do that, but then you'd have to manually move them to here if you were adding more years. I guess that's what Rennie was asking. So yeah, it's possible with a slight dirty hack. I'm not the king of the dirty hacks. I will leave that to my partner in crime. Okay, so 2015. What I want to do there is I want to add a t-shirt icon with the unicorn in the middle. So let's insert icon and search for t-shirt. Not sure if it'll find it. It's not spelt like that, it won't. There we go. Let's do that t-shirt there. So let's leave it as a white t-shirt, but take the unicorn logo, copy and paste, bring it over here, resize it, and there is our unicorn logo. Okay, and then I'm going to add a building icon. So insert icon and search for building. Which one was it? Actually, when I was setting this up, I searched for finance and I went for that one there. And basically that was saying that we launched on the stock exchange in 2018. And then, of course, we had COVID. So I'm going to insert icons. And did you set that other thing going?
Yes.
Right. Only because I didn't. Now, I'm not sure if there is a... No, there isn't a COVID icon. But there is a... Oh, hang on. Yes, there is. There's a whole bunch of COVID ones. So you've social distancing one. That's a good one. But we'll go for that one. And we'll change the colour. Change the colour to purple. Because I think COVID is purple, isn't it? And then I'll group those two together. There we go. And then with those all selected, I will align them all together. And then if I wanted to put the text in, because I've just put the text in here to explain what each one is doing, that was just a text box with text in it that I typed in, and I just set the background colour. So there is my timeline. Timeline with a difference, but nevertheless, it's still a timeline. Okay, Kim says, can you make, say, the middle chevron larger to represent 3 years instead of 1? Yeah, if I click on it, there we go. So first click just selects the entire container. Second click clicks in it, and then I could just make it bigger like that, Kim. You'd have to then move the other two along. They look like rockets, don't they? But yeah, you certainly can. And you could even, you could even change the colour of just one of them as well, if you wanted to point out something special about 2018. Maybe 2018 we made a loss, and therefore we want to show that in red. Or maybe, we made a loss and we want to show it smaller or bigger. So yes, you can. Okay, any other questions? Stick them in the chat. Otherwise, we will move on and look at something else other than unicorns.
Right, give me 1 second to sort that out, seeing as though it's late.
So, Tony enjoyed that and learned lots of stuff. Hopefully about Excel and not unicorns.
Nothing wrong with a good unicorn.
Take principle from this training.
We always say that.
Yes.
Right, okay. I need to get back in here, don't I? Hang on. Right, where's my stuff? Oh, that's very interesting and not in a good way.
Oh.
Okay. Right, let's do that and switch to my screen. Come on.
Magic Mike makes Excel more fun. I was called Magic Mike twice this morning.
Really?
Yeah.
One of Mike's women, clearly. Do you know, we forget that there are people here who don't know about your women and think I'm being serious. Come on, you're a babe magnet, admit it, Mike.
It was the same woman.
Mike.
What?
Watch, charged.
Oh, thank you.
Come on. Right, we're looking at Forklift. We've been doing a macOS Finder series. 4 weeks on the Finder. Oh, so much to look at. Last week, Pathfinder, one of my favourites. This week, Forklift. It's a very good app. It is a very, very good app. It's available standalone. It has been around, I checked and I couldn't believe it, 2007. Much excitement when it very first came out. I think it's got a nicer, more modern interface than Pathfinder. And it can do different things to Pathfinder. If you have got Setup, you already have it. And if I could make my mind up whether that was a capital L or a lowercase l, we'd all be doing well, wouldn't we? It's a capital L, I think. So let's go in and actually have a look at it. Right, I think I have it running somewhere. Let's have a look. Forklift. Or is it? Where are you? Come on. Come to mummy.
Carol wants to know about my women. I've told her to speak to Kim because Kim started it.
Mike is so kind and generous and gentle, aren't you? The first time that Mike's Women started was years and years ago, when one of the receptionists at one of his companies had split up with a boyfriend, and she took him into the cloakroom and cried on his shoulder. And I said, "Really?" You're so non-threatening, Mike. This is the thing. You're just lovely, and every woman knows it. What can I say? I'm just a blessed lady. Right, now he's blushing. I'll get on with Forklift. Capital L. Right, this is what the interface looks like. This is version 3. This is the latest version. It was released in February 2017. I don't know if that means we're due another one, but it would be nice to think so. But this one is perfectly functional and it's had lots of updates since then. So let's have a look at what we've actually got. Now, before I start, you can get a 14-day trial from the binarynights.com website. And if you come to purchase and you are not in Setup, but it is in Setup, a personal license is $29.95, and that says it's for your Mac. I trawled through the FAQs because there was no information. When it says your Mac, did it mean one? But the nearest I could find to information about that was somebody asked how to deactivate it so they could install it on another Mac. And they said, don't bother, just install it. So it looks like it's a personal license. If you have more Macs in the house and you have family members with separate accounts, then there is a family license for $49.95. There is also a small business license for $99.95, which is for 5 Macs in an office. Right, so what we actually have in here, it's a file manager. But more than a file manager, it's also a file transfer client. So unlike the standard Finder that doesn't have any concept of S3 or pCloud, WebDAV or anything else, Forklift does. So there is an integrated FTP option in there. Now, just before we all get confused with what we're looking at here, you will see that at the side I have other stuff. So I have the Macintosh HD. I have a scratch disk, which is a 1 terabyte SSD that's just purely for moving stuff around. I then have 2 8 terabyte drives, one of which is a backup of the other. The MacBites S3, Elaine Giles S3, MacBites FMS S3, these are S3 mount points, but they are not mounted in Forklift. If they were, they would only be available in Forklift. So don't get confused when I talk about the fact that you can mount an S3 mount point in Forklift. What I've done is I've used Cloud Mounter. And that way, those mount points are available permanently. It's just like having an external drive plugged in, but it's not. It's in the cloud. Google Drive is using the Google Drive application, which used to be they changed it. It's now Google Drive for Desktop. So I have an application installed called Google Drive for Desktop, and that is what is making the Google Drive icon appear. The pCloud one is also using Cloud Mounter. And the last one there is a hard drive that I've got plugged in, which I think is a 2 terabyte. Yeah, 2 terabyte one. And it's got all of the assets and all kinds of stuff from my Build a Second Brain thing. Because I've now done that many times. I've got that many assets. It's unbelievable. So that's what we're looking at in terms of my data on there. But Forklift can create its own mount points to S3 and many, many, many other services if that's what you want it to do. Now, interface. Initially, when you start this up, you will always have the dual pane view, which was like the number one thing in 2007. We all wanted a dual pane view. And Apple have never really addressed that and added it. I just think they're not interested. I'm guessing for them, it's a bit like the floppy disk and the CD. In their mind, local files will be disappearing and you will have no need to manage them because they live in a different universe to me. They tried that with iCloud, so you know all your Keynote files live together and all your X files live together and your Numbers files live together. That's not how projects work in the real world. I did stick with it, I'll be honest, with Keynote, because it was easier than fighting it. You know, Apple, it was easier than fighting it. By using the metaphor of one folder per app, your iPad works great, but pretty much nothing else does. So if it comes to archiving it, etc., if you then want to open it on the road, you've got to fiddle to get something back where it lives. So as far as I'm concerned, a really good, strong file manager is so important, and Apple don't seem to understand that. So I do have Pathfinder, I also have Forklift. So what we're looking at in Forklift right here, this harks right back to the days of DOS, when there was applications such as Norton Commander, Total Commander, File Commander. Loved those. Norton Commander I think we had, and Total Commander. And I actually used that instead of Windows Explorer. So when I came to the Mac, it was quite a culture shock. This didn't exist. Forklift didn't exist. And Pathfinder was clunky back in the day. So it was great when this came out because it gave you an alternative and it feels a lot lighter than... let me know in the chat, does anybody else know what I'm talking about here? When it feels lighter, there's less interface and there's more like, okay, I can sit down and get on and do the file jobs. I just think Forklift has the better interface of the two. So what you're looking at, you have 4 panes. The sidebar on the left-hand side is akin to the standard Finder sidebar, but it has superpowers that does not, but we'll come on to that. Then you have in the centre, you've got your left panel and your right panel, which can look at different drives or different locations, different folders on the same drive. But it does give you that dual pane view. Renee says it looks like Commander Pro. It does. It does. He's really comforting. It does. On the right-hand side, you have a quick preview. In other words, an info panel. What's interesting with the thing on the right-hand side is if we go in and we look at a document. So let's have a look at Lola's cat. There's Lola's cat. As well as the standard information that we have at the bottom, which is this metadata here, you actually get a nice preview at the top, which if you think about the Finder info, you don't get that kind of information. It's also much harder to read that information in the popover that you get in Finder. Right, that's an image, that's a JPEG. But if we look at what else you get here, that's an Affinity photo file, but you can see it. Not many things can preview Affinity Photo, Affinity Designer and Affinity Publisher, but this one can. Then we've got, what did I have in there? Oh, that was an email that I printed out to myself, so that's a PDF. And the beautiful thing in here is you can see all the pages in the PDF just from that preview window, which is nice. That is nice. Let's have a look at the Affinity Photo one. Yep, it's okay with that one as well. That's high efficiency. That was the original, which I cropped. And what else have we got in here? I think we've got these. So, what I don't have there, which I'm about to rectify, is I don't have a text file. So let's go and get Sublime Text. And all I need is pretty much a sample text file. So this is a text file. Let's not get excited with it. And I will save that. And I need to put it in the assets in here. So I will give it a text extension and put it in there. Right, and we'll get that out of the way. And I'm going to close it down so it's not open in Sublime anymore. But in here, we should have, this is a text file. And there it is, over there. This is a text file. And I'm clicking in the preview. And in the preview, I can edit it. Which is pretty amazing. And hit save. So if it's a small text file you're working with, you get your preview, that's a nice touch. I can see many, many occasions when I'd be looking at a text file and what I'd be looking for it to open it and edit it, but I can actually just edit it in there. If you're wondering if that actually is edited, then what we'll do is we will open that and we will bring it on and it's edited. No smoke and mirrors, it really works. These are the kind of nuanced features that they've added that's like, that's such a nice touch. Oh, that's good. The benefit of a dual pane view is fairly obvious, isn't it? But this over here, which you think of as just a preview, when you can actually interact with the files, it then becomes obvious that that is also so important. Right, if you were to try and do that info panel there, that is more of an info panel because you can edit it. If you're trying to do that in Finder, you're going to have to open it up separately and it can't edit anyway. There are things that you can do in that popover that you would get in Finder, but not like that. Now, also in here, if we have, and I'm having a swift look down here, don't see one. We need to quickly find one of those. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up another window over here and find a file and add it into there. So what do I have of mine, I wonder? Oh, I was watching this video. So I had this video. I will bring that into here. This was about this FiveActs that we talked about before. So these are the screenshots from it, and we can see those in the preview. But I also have this video. And if I come over here in the preview, I can actually preview the video as well. Too cool. Too cool. Those underneath, that's the subtitles. So it's not text, that's nothing to do with that. That's the subtitles that came with the video. And you can also do that with audio. So if we look at the MacBites FM S3, we have one folder in there. And that's the shows folder. And there's all the Maroons going right up to 434. Is Tracy in yet? Because if she sees that, I think I'm up to a 409. But I did tell her that all of these were done. Now, I've clicked on that, which is 411 and now 410. And we're getting a bit of a spinning beach ball. But that's because that's a mount point provided by Cloud Mounter. So it needs to download that before it can do anything with it. But once it has done, and I hover over it, I can actually play that file from there. So audio and video play in this sidebar. Text files can be edited in the sidebar. It's pretty stunning. Every page of a PDF can be viewed. So it's not just there for show, which pretty much in Finder it is. Anyway, let's get back to where we were here, because we don't want to be playing up there, do we? Right, we were in assets, weren't we? It's having a rare old think about it. I think I'm killing the machine. Go on, don't crash on me. Don't crash on me. We'll carry on while it has a think about it. Right, as well as the dual pane that we've got here, you are thinking about it then. We started off and I had my 8TB drive number 6 here and the backup of it in this window here. But already you can see you can have multiple tabs in each panel of the dual pane view. So just as you would on Finder, if you Command and T, you get a new tab. Command and T, and you will repeatedly get new tabs within that pane. The current pane is highlighted in blue. So we're talking about this area here, which means if I press the tab key, it changes to the other side, and using the arrow keys I can navigate up and down. Press tab again, it goes back to the other side and I can navigate up and down. Now I love shortcut keys. I do not want to have my hand on the mouse at all perfectly, perfect world, not at all. So the ability to tab between them and move up and down is very useful as far as I'm concerned. Right, next thing to think about. One of the problems with any replacement Finder is the Finder itself has special properties. Oh, it does. Special properties. So if I bring this on, we can see here I've got exactly the same folder open. So I've got some images in here. I've got all sorts in here. Let's have Lola with the cat again. Right, this is actually in Dropbox. So if we look at the path at the bottom, it's on my Macintosh HD, it's in the users, my user, but then it's in Dropbox, projects, after hours, and then the assets. So if I wanted to share this, so Lola and the cat, when I right click, I've got these special options in here, some of which is Smart Sync, Send for Signature, all kinds of stuff. They appear in the Finder because I have the Dropbox client installed. And I need the Dropbox client installed if I want to copy a Dropbox link or something like that. Another place I would use that is if we go to MacBites S3 again. If I wanted here to make one of these files public, I can right click on it and I get these 4 options. These 4 options are provided by Cloud Mounter. So my problem if I use an external Finder, an alternative to it, is these tend not to be available, these kind of things. Now I can live without the S3 ones, but the Dropbox integration is pretty handy to have. So what we have in here, let's get rid of some of these. You have multiple copies of that one now. But in here, these are on Dropbox. So I can right click and I get 2 options. I can view them on Dropbox and I can copy the Dropbox link. So the 2 most common things that I would want to do with a file that's on Dropbox are available. Those 2 options are available. They're available because I have the Dropbox client installed, but they've not gone to the level that you have all of the options available, but at least some of the options are available. which is better than the alternative, which is none of them. So good support for Dropbox there on a right click. It is primitive by compared to Finder, but it's better than nothing. Right. Now, when I'm working in here, you have the option to have favourites down here. These favourites are not the same favourites that you have in your Finder. They are favourites within Forklift. So let's say I'm working in my projects and I'm working on this one and this one right now. And I would like those to be a favourite. Right, you can right click, I do believe, although I never do it this way. Do we have a favourite option? Don't think we do. But we do have that up there, which will take us to our favourites. And these here that we're looking at are the ones that we have over here. This is just a way of managing them. It's a different view in terms of managing them, which I'm just moving a wheel, which I do not need to move. That would be bad news. So that's taking me to my favourites, and I can toggle those favourites on and off. There is a reason that I would want to toggle these on and off, okay, which we will come to. But I do have the ability to show the favourites. That's doing exactly the same as the button. But I also, if I have one selected, I can see them in here. So I can add that to my favourites. So I'm working on that at the moment, and I would like to add that. Now it says after hours 130, but it's dim. It's very, very pale. That's because I can give it another name if I want. Or I can just click add and it will use the name of the folder. So let's add that. And it puts it at the bottom. If I toggle the favourites on again, it's also at the bottom and it gives me the full path to it. Right, and I'm also working with that one at the moment. Now this is a good example of when, okay, it would be nice to have that added to the favourites. So we'll add to favourites, but the problem we've got is it's that long. I'm pretty much calling that build with me. So I will change it and add it, because if I don't change the name, it's so wide, I'm only going to be seeing the beginning of it. And if I've got multiple projects on multiple days, the same day, it's going to be confusing which is which. So the ability to have a favourite but have it renamed is actually much more powerful than you would imagine. But it gets better than that. Right, so we do have in here the ability to add to favourites, and we can see the favourites with show favourites, which gives us that panel. And we also have the option to navigate to the favourites in here. Right, but let's go back to the show the favourites in here. Right, there is an add at the bottom of that panel as well. And in here you get the ability not just to create a new favourite, which is a single location or a single file, but you also get the opportunity to add a new group. Now, this is grouped already. So at the top we have Bonjour. We have whatever is going on up here. That's my laptop, that's Mike's. I mean, you all obviously know anything beginning with Mike T, that's Mike. Anything that sounds more esoteric than that is me. So I have Serenity and Faith and Angel. A Marconi Mobile, which is my dad's 2009 MacBook Pro, still going strong. Still going strong. My 2018 model. Creaky. Let's just say creaky. So Bonjour's one group and Favourites is another group. So if I go down here and I add a new group, what I'm doing is creating a whole different grouping of favourites. So I could call this Active Projects. Now, these two are active projects, so I could drag that down to there and drag that down to there. And now we're starting to oh yes, we are rocking and rolling now. Because what I can do in the sidebar is actually hide things. So if I don't want to see this stuff, I've filtered it down to the devices, which I can even hide the devices if you want, and create my own groupings over here and make a completely different sidebar. Totally different sidebar, which I wish the Finder did this. I mean, it does have the ability to turn things on and off, and that's about it. But this ability to create favourite groups is just stunning. So that's one of my favourite features. Now there is an option with this to synchronise this via Dropbox. The configuration. Now you might say to yourself, why would I do that? Well, it wouldn't make sense, or it would make a lot less sense if you're linking to local locations. So, for instance, let's have a look at them. Every one that's there, if you look at them, is not a local folder. When I say not a local folder, if we look from the top, the favourites here, which is that one, that's the same whether I'm on my Mac, my secondary Mac, my laptop, or anywhere else, because my user account is called the same. So all of the ones that say users/Elaine G, they're going to be the same on every Mac. So it is worth synchronizing them. The ones that don't start like that, so the first ones all are, but like that one there, which is Google Drive. When we look at the path, that is what my Google Drive inbox path would be on any of my computers. It would be mounted as a volume called Google Drive. Within that, there would be my drive, and within that, there would be my inbox. So if I synchronize this on another machine, that would work as well. Right, let's have a look at the bottom two. Would they work? And they would, because they're both in Dropbox. So on any of my computers, that would be the location that that file would actually be. It makes less sense if you have a local folder and you create a link to that. But they will synchronize for things like this, which I find particularly useful. I do have a local documents folder. Let's bring the Finder on and just show you. So this is how this is actually set up. So I create these favourites at the top that I'm working with throughout the week. And then down here, I have, let's have a look at those. I have this documents local folder. And that's for things like you've made a recording, you've made a local recording, and it's like 36 gig. I do not want that uploading to my iCloud documents folder. But some things make sense to be in the documents folder. So if we look at all the things we've got here, these make sense here. This Zoom one will save all of the text files, the chat files from Zoom. And it doesn't matter what machine I'm on when I'm doing these, I will get a text file. So if we have a look in here, we will get a text file, and that is available in this machine or any machine that I watch that on, even an iPad. It would work. So there is a place for a local documents folder and there is a place for a cloud-based documents folder, but the local one is where I would put files that are absolutely huge. But these active project things, it makes sense that I can just pick up a laptop, presupposing it's feeling in a good mood today, and work with the same files on a different machine. So that's the favourites and favourite groups. It gets even better than that though. So what I'm going to do in here is this as it stands is one of my local drives, but what I'm going to do is show you. Let's open all these up again. Right, I'll start with my project thing in here, which is Dropbox, and there's my projects. Right, in Dropbox I have the same organisation that I have everywhere else. So in my areas I have MacBites. Right, let's go in there and get rid of that one. And so that was Dropbox, but I also have Google Drive. And in my drive, I've got all of this stuff, which needs to be dealt with. All of that happened today, so I need to sort that out. What are you doing?
Press the wrong button.
Well, don't press the wrong button. Right, in here I also have areas, and I have more areas. But in there, I also have MacBites. So I've got lots of different stuff. It's not the same stuff. There are lots of different stuff. I may also want another folder, and this time I might want to look at the stuff that is up in the cloud for MacBites. So there's all our Advent stuff, and there's our newsletter assets, and there's the actual shows, all of the MacBites shows. So I might up there, I'm probably going to want the newsletter assets more than anything else. So I am opening these up over here. And then I'll open up another one. And let's say this time I want the MacBites FM stuff and I want the shows for that. So I've opened up those. So I've got these 4 tabs open that I use all the time. And over here I might want to see that area again. So I've got that one open just in case. This is the backup drive over here. So if I'm trying to back things up, maybe I want access to that. And what else might we want here? Trying to think in relation to this. Probably not. Let's put it there. That says missing in action, but it's all right. I found it. It's on a different drive. Okay, so what I've done is I've created a window setup, a window configuration with tabs that I would use all the time. And I want to be able to get back to that. And the beauty of this is that your favourites up here, where we've saved locations, individual folders like this, so that particular folder. But what you can also do up here is you can save a workspace. And a workspace is everything that you're looking at, all of the open tabs and your configurations. So if I save the workspace, this one would be MacBites. So it would be my MacBites workspace. You get to say where you would save it. So is it a favourite or is it an active project? Technically speaking, in second brain speak, MacBites would be an area. So I'll put it in favourites and add it. So when I go to my favourites in here, in addition to my favourite locations, I also have this workspace. And that would return me to that configuration. So if I come in here and I quickly close down a couple of these, let's see if it works. So in my favourites, I'm going to double click that and it reconfigures my entire window to match what it did before, which is just great. Now that's very similar to what we saw with Pathfinder last week. So it is something that's in Pathfinder. Finder has no concept of this. It's just like open a window, open another one, open 10 more. And then, oh dear, I've got 20 windows open. I'll just merge them and then close what I don't need. But in here, you can be much more granular in your control of that. Okay, let's get back to... where are we? We are going in here. We are looking at the data. No, we're not. We're looking at the assets. That's what we're looking at. So all of this stuff in here. Right. What you can do here is you can do lots of different things in order to select some files. So those files there and those files there, I don't want to move them. Don't do that. All right. Like that. They're PNGs. So I want to select all the PNGs. Where are all the PNGs? I've no idea. Some will have extensions, some will not have extensions. Now, column-wise, I only have 3 columns. So if I can add extra columns, then I could do the sorting like that. I could sort by the extension. We saw in Pathfinder, you can sort by the tag. But there is a better way in here, which is, if you command an S, you get an Alfred-esque quick select. Now, the commands you've got there are to select all, deselect all, select all the files, or select all the folders. So a quick way to select all the folders would be to do that. And I've got the folder selected. But Command and S. It's handy to be able to select all, but why would you do it that way? And because what you can do in here, let's get rid of that, is you could just Command and A and that would select the entire lot anyway. Okay. So this Command and S, it's not just the commands that are underneath that you can access. You can actually type something in. So if I'm thinking I want all the files that were the FiveActs thing, I can actually start typing in there and it says select matches. And what it does underneath that, in this matches part here, is actually show you all the things that are called FiveActs, have FiveActs in the name, and you can just press enter and you're done. So the beauty of that is, and what I'm going to do this time, I'm going to select all of the PNGs. I'm not touching the mouse. So I'm Command and S and I'm putting in PNG. It shows me all those. I select, just press enter and they're selected. That is so good. Oh, that is so good. Loving that. Loving that. So you're selecting by various criteria. And it, you know, you could say, you could put calendar in. I've got 2 in there with calendar, haven't I? So if I just put calendar, it shows me the match and I just press enter to accept that match. So useful. Right, the other thing that you can do is you can synchronize folders. So this is on my Dropbox. This is on my backup drive. If I'm going to want to do this, I probably want to put it on my Scratch drive. So what I've got here is the standard para organisation, apart from this sparse bundle, which is backing up as it goes, but it's doing it quietly because the notifications won't come on till midnight. But that's the only exception to it. Right, so let's say over here, I would like to synchronise this folder with, so basically make a backup of it. So over here, I make a new folder, and I can call this After Hours 130, not 139. Oh, talking of which, has young Jonathan gone?
Probably.
Right, I'm going to open that. Right, I want to synchronise these. Now, obviously I can just grab some of these and make copies. And that copies them, and it does it very quickly. But then it's SSD to SSD, so it's not surprising. Oh, no, it's not. It's Dropbox. But it's stored local. So it's SSD to SSD, so it's pretty fast. Right, but you have a better way to do that, which is you have this sync button up here. And what this is doing is comparing the folder in the left-hand pane, which is all of these, and it's comparing this one, and it's saying what's already there and what's not there and what needs to be there, what's missing, etc. Right, you have lots of options when it comes to this. So over here it's saying synchronise items from left to right. You could choose to synchronise the other way, or you could choose to synchronise both ways. So when I think of synchronise, I think of synchronising both ways, not particularly one way, because that way madness lies. Synchronising should be synchronising, making them the same. You also get granular control of whether you add items, whether you update the items with modification dates, or use different size, whether you delete anything that's orphaned, which by default is turned off, whether you sync the hidden items or not, which are the dot items. So these two at the top are hidden. They are the bridge sort, because I use bridge on this, and it's the DS store file, which Macs create automatically. You can filter items if you don't want certain things there, and you can create a time offset. So what that means is if you've edited these files in a different time zone and stuff, or they're dated in a different time zone, you can set an offset. And then you would just need to sync. So in this case, I'd be synchronizing from left to right, adding them, updating anything, and synchronizing all of the subfolders. So I will sync that. And now the left and right are identical. So you can see we've got 56 items. Right, to show you how it works, what I'm going to do is we've got this is a text file. I will duplicate this as a text file to this is another text file. All right. Another text file, and it's only in the backup location. It doesn't exist over here. So when you synchronize, you would get the opportunity. What it's done is it's looked at it and it said, yeah, everything that's on the left is already on the right, but did you know there's another file on the right, so do you want to transfer that back? So clever. So I'll say synchronize, and this time it's transferred it back the other way. Right, let's do that again. But this time we will have text file number 3. And this time we'll do it slightly differently. So we will synchronize, but we'll say from left to right, which should give us nothing to do. So it will synchronize, but it will do nothing because delete orphaned items is turned off. So if I click sync, it'll do it, but there's nothing to do. We go back into it, and this time I say from left to right and delete orphaned items. It starts panicking. Right, it wants to be absolutely certain that you know what you're doing. So I'll say yes, enable it. And it will even give you a preview of the file that it's going to delete, which in this case we're quite happy with. So I'll sync that and it's gone. Right, let's have another text file. We'll call this number 4. Let's just make it number 4. Oh no, will that work? It puts it at the top and I want it at the bottom. So we'll start with this 4. And that puts it down the bottom so we can see it here. This is only existing over here. And on this side, I'll make another new text file, but this time this is going to be number 5. So 5 only exists on the left, 4 only exists on the right. And if you've ever done this with a folder full of data, acres and acres of data, it takes forever. But what this will do is, it will, as soon as you say synchronize, it will say, right, okay, this is what I'm suggesting is a good idea. Which is, it will take number 5 from the left-hand side, and it will transfer it to the backup on the right-hand side. But because delete orphaned items is there, it will delete this number 4. First thing we could do is say, no, don't delete the orphaned items, in which case it will do one thing. It will take 5 and it will put it onto the backup. But if what we wanted was to say, I want these the same, irrespective of which way round they are, you could choose both ways. And your little arrows are showing you that 5 will be transferred over to the backup on the right, and 4 will be copied across to the original data on the left. And all you need to do is hit sync. Now, that's important because if when we looked before, so before we did that, they both had 58 files in them, but they weren't the same files. So the ability to say synchronize it both ways is so useful. So useful. So we've got that one done, folder sync and all of the options. Now another option that we've got, and which files did I use? I think it was these files here. So these files, if we make this a bit wider so we can actually see the name of them. Not the best name I've ever seen. This was the video snapshots that I took. We've got the minus up to that, and then we've got the numbers at the end, and yeah, it could be better. It could be better. Now, what you can do here is, I'm going to select these, and we have the ability to rename 7 items, the items I have selected. And when I bring this up, it's basically FileMangler come better find a rename inside Forklift. So you can choose what kind of operation you run. The default it suggests is replace text, and you can apply it to the name and extension, with the dot, without the dot, etc. And at what occurrences you want, and whether you want it as a regex, and what the text is you want to replace. But you also can change case, you can add text, you can add a date, and you can add a sequence number. So I would like these, let's make this a bit bigger, to be a little bit better named than that. And your first step in doing that is deciding how you're going to hook in to do it. I would like the file name to say behind the design, space dash space, Firefox's new look, underscore, and the number. So my first thing is to sit and think, how am I going to do that? What can I hook into? What's predictable? And I know that if I said replace the text of n minus, I've not told it what with yet, so over on the right hand side it disappears and we've now got desic. But if I say replace it with the n and then a space and then the dash, that's perfect. That's exactly what I want. But I also want this dash replacing with an underscore between the file name and the number. And if we look at the interface, I can't do that there because I can only specify one thing at a time. But I can add multiple steps. So if I choose another replace text, it's going to do step 1 first, then it's going to move on to step 2. So in here I want to replace the text. And what do I want to replace? And it would be so easy to think the minus sign. You want to change the minus sign and change it for an underscore. No, because if I do that, it will delete the first one. So I need to hook it properly. And you do that by saying, well, in this case, luckily we have the K and the minus. And what I can do is replace that with the K. So I put the K back and then I put an underscore under it. So I've done or I will do when I click the button, I will have done a 2-step rename on that in here. So let's rename them. And over on this side, they will get renamed. And just to prove the point in terms of this synchronization, when we bring that up, it knows that these have been renamed over there. I can just hit sync and everything's all synchronized. And I don't need to think about that either. Oh, hang on. Hang on. Right, there must have been something in there. Can I just undo that? Did I say don't delete anything? I didn't say to delete the orphan files. So we're sure as soon as I do that, so even if I make a mistake like that, because I didn't put the delete orphan files in, I can do it in retrospect and it will then delete the old files. And then we still have 59 on each side. So that is the multiple naming criteria. Now, that happens a lot, as far as I'm concerned, with numbers. I get something like, I want to replace maybe a space with an underscore or something like that. So if we were to take these and do just that with it, so we will command and rename. And in this case, what I want to say is, I want you to take a space and I want you to change it to an underscore. And we don't need step 2. That's fine as far as it goes. That's great. At this point, this is something I'm going to want to reuse multiple times. You have the ability to add this as a favourite as well. So in this thing, it would be space to underscore. And I will put it in the favourites. But I have every group that I have created in here. So I've got the active projects as well. But this one will be more of a utility, so I'll put it in the favourites. And click Add. And then I can rename these things. And they get renamed. Now, over on this side, I'm going to hit the favourites. Why are we not seeing the favourites? Come on. Right, there's the favourites. So down here, I've got the MacBites workspace, and I've also got this space to underscore. So let's see if we can grab these over here and drag them over there. Oh, you're not going to do that. But I will click that, and hopefully that will work. Why are you not working? Hang on, let's go up there. And rename it in there. Are we getting that? Oh, I'm not. Where has that disappeared to? Never mind. So we've sorted that out. What have we got left? Not much, to be honest. We're almost done. Almost done. Right, let's get back in here, and we had some text files. We had these text files down at the bottom. So I'm going to look at this one, which is this is a text file. And we have this is a text file over here. But I'm going to open this one up, and it's opened it up. In fact, I don't need to open it up, do I? I don't need to open it up because I can do it in here. Right, this file is in the backup. Okay, so I've changed that one over there and I've saved it. Okay, but I'm looking at that file and I'm looking at that file manually and I'm thinking to my little self, that's interesting because I've got that file there. So what do I do about checking them? And somewhere in here, let's do that, I have the compare option. So where did that disappear to? Come on, where have you gone? Oh, it's dimmed out. Why is it dimmed out? I probably have to compare that with that one, don't I? So I've made a change to that one. So I'll compare that one with that one. Okay. So let's go and compare still dimmed out. Why are you dimmed out? Why is compare dimmed out? It's not even in there either. Oh, I have no idea why that's dimmed out. Let's pick one. I can understand why it's dimmed out if I've only got one selected, but if I've got two and I want to compare them, that makes no sense to me. Maybe somebody could explain that to me. What I was trying to do was compare that one with that one over there. But it also doesn't seem to want to do that either. Oh, there we go. There it is. It's alive now. Oh, now that's naughty. I doubtless can't do that now because if I do, it's going to want me to turn something off. And if I do, then Wirecast's going to get very uppity. Tell you what I'll do. I will do that in the week and we will see that one thing next week. Right, other thing to look at when you're in here is all of the nuances with the preferences. So you can choose your starting directory. I always choose Dropbox, the root of Dropbox, because that's where I am 90% of the time. So I always choose that. You can decide whether you want the same windows and tabs opened when you restart it. And if you are in any way nervy moused, you can ask for confirmation when you're dragging and dropping things. I have been known to drag and drop the odd thing to the wrong place. It can detect applications when it's deleting, and the reason that that is mentioned is because it also has the ability to delete an application a bit like AppZap. If you've never heard of AppZapper, it's a way of deleting an app off the Mac where instead of taking just the app with it, it goes and looks for all the detritus that the app leaves behind, and Forklift can do that for you as well. It can handle archives in it, so if you want to unzip and zip your stuff in Forklift, it can do all of that. It can even treat archives as folders. So what we mean by that is if you have a zip file, you can actually just click on it and it will show you everything that's inside it. And I know that Kim's going to love the dark mode, because Kim's a dark mode girl. So you can also enable dark mode on it. And you've got Forklift Mini in the menu bar, which I do have, but it's probably in here somewhere. There's Forklift Mini, and I've got nothing in there at the moment. But that is Forklift Mini up there in there if you want it. I've got it set so it does synchronise the favourites in Dropbox. Dropbox is the only way to synchronise it. Okay. You've got your compare tool in there, which obviously I now need to install. And I've got it checking for updates automatically because at the moment Mac Update Desktop is not working on Biggles. So I'm boycotting it and I'm not using it on any machines that I've got. You have a range of shortcuts, which I live by shortcuts, so it's great to see those in there. But it says key binding set. And what it's talking about, these are all the menu options, so you can actually see what the shortcuts are. But this bit here allows you to change the commands so they match Commander. So if you've been using Commander for years and years, this has a different set of shortcut keys. You can toggle it back and use the old shortcut keys if you want to. Right, the transfers is what's happening when you're uploading and downloading from cloud services. What's the replace policy? And what that means is, do you want to skip it if there's something up there? Do you want to replace what's up there? And these are all the policies that you can set and how much bandwidth you use, which is quite quaint. That reminds me back when we were using, what was that FTP client we used?
Yummy.
Yummy FTP. No, the one before that, the one on Windows. Or was that the CSS editor? There was an FTP client and it was fabulous.
There was.
But you had to be very careful with the bandwidth because you won't be able to check your email if you're uploading a 2K file. So it's quite quaint to see that. I just use the bandwidth. You know, I'm on a gig connection, just use the lot.
WSFTP.
That's the one, WSFTP. Oh, it reminded me of Sausage Software now. What was that one called?
Hot dog.
Hot dog from Sausage Software. Oh, those were the days. That was when apps had good names. So what you've got in here is any tools that are enabled. So you can link into HowderSpot if you want to as well. And then you've got your editing options. So if you want to have an application wired to edit a particular extension, you can do that too. So the preferences are definitely worth having a look at. In terms of what it supports SFTP, FTP, WebDAV, which means pCloud, Amazon S3, Backblaze, Google Drive, SMB, which is server message block, AFP, Apple Files, VNC, Dropbox, GitHub, you name it. So you might wonder why I would have Forklift as well as Pathfinder. I think obviously there's a crossover, they're both file managers, but they're also different enough in terms of the actual functionality that they have that you might turn to one rather than another for a particular job. And I think we're done. I think that is absolutely everything that we've got there. So I will head in to here. Have we ascertained if young Johnny's asleep?
I think young Johnny's
I think
asleep.
we have, haven't we? So that was Pathfinder. No, it wasn't. It was Forklift. Oh, can you tell it's late? That was Forklift. Any questions? Put them in the chat. While I head up to what we have got coming up. Oh, so much coming up. We have, of course, next week, 131. We know for certain we're definitely looking at DevonThink for the document library and Evernote for the document library. Evernote still has legs, believe it or not. And there's 2 versions I'm going to show you. 2 versions of Evernote I will show you. I could do 3 if I did the browser as well, but let's not push it, hey. In the meanwhile, on Sunday, less than 48 hours away, we're doing the Affinity Publisher Build With Me. And do I know what we're building yet? I do, actually, but it's a surprise. But the idea of a Build With Me is that I take the features that we've looked at over the last few weeks and deploy them in a real document. And this is a real document. It's scary. So that's on Sunday at 3 o'clock. Sorry about the time in the States, but otherwise we'd be asleep. We also did deep dive on data merge, so Mike will put the links in for this lot. They're in Craft if you're wondering, Mike, because there's so many places that we use. But the deep dive on data merge was great fun. The one that's been viewed the most is working with images, and people seem to like working with images. We then did mastering textiles, which has also had quite a few views. Then there was the one that put me on the naughty step last week, creating and managing assets in Affinity Publisher. And YouTube decided in their infinite wisdom that I'd been naughty and didn't want to monetize it, but they came around to my way of thinking. So it is there on demand and you can see that. Right, as I say, all available on demand. You can get that at youtube.com/Elaine Giles. We have an After Hours playlist, and that is available. There is a shortcut to it, macbites.co.uk/After Hours playlist. So just commit that to memory and you're good and done. Right, we are still marooned. Still. Although Boris says we won't be in June. And the Netherlands won't be next week. But we'll see how all that pans out. We're still marooned at the moment. So there is the feed if you would like to catch up on us being marooned. There is the QR code. Again, catch up with us being marooned. All of which happens on MacBites FM. And we love you guys. If you love us, could you give us a like and or a comment? We love comments. We do. So feel free. If you want first dibs on everything that I am doing, you will need to go to elainegiles.com/VIP. And that is where you will get the mails that are coming up with all of the links in for all of the Mad May things. And there's also macbites.co.uk/macbites-mail, which is all things MacBites. We are also on Slack. We love Slack. It's where we carry on the conversation, and the conversations do carry on, like the tomato conversation that you spotted, Mike. And that is macbites.co.uk/Slack. So I will leave that there for a couple of seconds so you can snap it with your camera. Other than that, I need to know, what about Johnny? Is he asleep?
Kim's already called it.
Poor Johnny. He must be having a heck of a time at work. Anyway, like we always say, good morning, Jonathan. You'll notice I'm not shouting because I don't want to wake him. No, I definitely don't want to wake him. Not now, I'm so close. Right, I'm going to flit over here.
Wakey, wakey, rise and shine.
No, don't disturb him.
Sleepy head, it's Elaine for the win time.
I'm liking that, Mike.
I just made that up.
You're a poet and you didn't know
Can't you
it.
tell?
Right, shall we add one? 22, it's all the twos this week. 22-2. You're doing very well, Jonathan. It's not mathematically impossible yet. Just need a fitness test maybe, and go strong. At the end
Don't
of
miss
the
any
year.
penalties.
Yeah, don't miss any penalties in the last minute. Can you tell he's a little bit sore about that? Anyway, what do we have in the way of questions? Oh, Graham's got some extra things to try out in Forklift now. Oh, what are you going to be trying out, Graham? Some of the things that make it nice to work with for me are the favourites. I just think that's logic. That's how it should be. And yet, even Pathfinder, which has got so many features, but not that one. You can make different sidebars, but it's tricky. And there's no way to save them and then have them synchronising. Oh, there we go. There goes my midnight stuff and all of the things that happen. I don't think I can do much about that. Oh, you're not seeing it, so that's fine. All the midnight stuff's just coming on my computer, but never mind. You can't see it, so it's fine. Right, let's switch back to that, because we don't like to upset young Jonathan, do we? So let's switch back to that. So do we... Oh, I'm loving D, Mike the Rapper. There's me thinking of a poet. You know, with comfy slippers, bobbly slippers and fingerless gloves. In his... what's the word for that? In your writing den, your little den. Or shed. People get writing sheds these days, don't they? You won't get me out in the shed.
In my smoking jacket.
Can't see that myself, but you never know. Oh dear. Right, let's have a look. Yay, okay, I'm looking at this. Oh, we've been playing with the sync. It's actually quite fully featured. Because the thing is that what's nice about it is it warns you first. It actually previews what you're going to do. I tend to just carbon copy clone a drive and be done with it, and I only go one way. I am never, ever likely to have data on the backup drive because the backup drive usually isn't mounted. So I will mount the backup drive and then do a backup and then unmount the backup drive so there are no accidents. But that's quite nice for folders. You know, if you've been working out on the road and you come back and you think, oh, I've got no idea what's here, and you have to do it file by file, that is really nice. There is a dedicated app for that, which is ChronoSync, which we did used to use, but ChronoSync failed once and totally threw me. Because, you know, if ChronoSync fails, stuff gets deleted and that's not good. So that's more than adequate. I am more than happy to use that. And I think for me, it would be when I'm focusing on a project, I would fold up all the shared stuff and the devices and just have a range of favourites. And that would work really well. Even though a lot of my stuff is on Dropbox, I could still do that. And you saw me like do the Dropbox to the scratch disk backup, which I tend to do when I'm working. And I particularly like the way to select files where I want the PNGs and I don't have to fiddle. I can just put in PNG and it's all driven by the keyboard, which is even better. Just the fact I can tab across from one side to the other got me giddy. You know, by the time I was like, oh, and this and this and this. Oh, so much nice tech in there. Nice tech. I'm liking it. A Shedio. Oh, that's a good point, isn't it? Like a studio. A Shedio. Oh, yeah. I know somebody who did that. I don't know whether she worked in the living room. She was a writer. She started off with fanfic and then started writing books. And she worked in the living room, but she'd always wanted like a writer's space. And the husband in the end said, well, you just get one of these sheds. And these things were like, you know, like glamping is to camping. These were like glamorous sheds. But I thought, surely it's boiling in the summer and freezing in the winter and full of spiders, which doesn't appeal to me. But, you know, there are some that are absolutely beautiful. They're like chalets, aren't they? I know somebody who had one put in. I think it cost about 18,000. And I thought, what kind of shed is this? Or is this the price of sheds these days? You know, when I get quoted a price for something and I'm like, what? And then that actually happens. Never mind. Our shed is in need of severe renovation, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. But I don't particularly want to turn it into a writing room. But Shedio, I'm liking that. Kim's changing the rules here. Next year we should do bank holidays for 10 points. Oh, come on. Oh, Kim, no. No. I want a steward's inquiry on that. There's only... was there one or two this year? Jonathan got some points on New Year's Day. So obviously next year, New Year's Day will be Saturday. Which means we've got Good Friday, which is a bank holiday. That's how come I got 2 points that day. And I think that could possibly be it. There might only be one. It could shake things up. Jonathan could just get match fit. Have you thought of that? Okay, we got any more questions on that? Oh, Deb's sister-in-law's got one of the fancy glam sheds. Oh, wow. And has it got curtains and stuff and carpets and everything? Some of them are stunning. Absolutely stunning. But, you know, I'm thinking, I remember when I thought about it, and I thought, because at the time, that the house here, I mean, it's big enough, but there was 4 of us and the dog. And we coped. But I remember thinking, I wouldn't, could we do something with the shed and turn it into a studio, basically? Could we create an outside of the house space for studio work, audio work and video work, based on the fact that then you wouldn't have to say to like mum and dad, we're recording. Basically, can you keep it down? We're recording. So I did look at them and I thought, one, wow, they won't fit in our garden. They were huge. And the second thing was, as we were thinking about it, I said, you know what, an extension would be easier. And an extension turned out to be cheaper than the shed. So we now have this glorious extension at the back, which we need to do something with blinding-wise, don't we? Given that it's got a lot of windows and it's south-facing. So we get a lot of sunshine when the sun shines, which obviously isn't often, but it's every time I want to sit in there. That's the same reason I can't work in the mornings in my office, because in the morning it's north-facing, well, northish, east-facing really. So about 7 o'clock as the sun rises, shines through the window straight onto the iMac, can't see a thing. So I need to be in bed at 7 o'clock, and I venture back in, 10:30 to 12 o'clock when the sun's disappeared round the side of the house, and I can get on again. works for me. Now, Kim, that's total genius. Total genius. We need to get Johnny a dog, and then he'll have to wake up and take it out. Yeah, I have noticed this, Dee. Dee makes a very good point here. Kim's not sounding that impartial. Do we need a steward's inquiry? I think we might. There's no impartiality here. Do we have his phone number? I have Johnny's phone number. And there was one time I did text him to say, are you awake?
And he didn't reply.
He replied the following morning, no, I wasn't. Oh, poor Johnny. Poor Johnny. It's great fun. I don't know if he's on WhatsApp.
He's not on WhatsApp.
No, he's not on WhatsApp. Doesn't do the WhatsApp thing. Do you know, I wouldn't do the WhatsApp thing, but I was kind of had it foisted upon me by the church. Oh, never mind. I would love to see pictures of this glam shed, the she sheds. Glam she sheds. I guess it's like a man cave, isn't it? Only for ladies, hence the curtains. Oh, that would be so good. You could name his dog Shortcut. Well, we have a hashtag, don't we? We have Alex's hashtag. Hashtag the dog. Johnny's people must have gotten to Kim. She's corrupt. Oh, Tracy's caught up. Fantastic. That's excellent, Tracy. Do you know, you do amazingly well with that. And this time tomorrow, young Jonathan will have caught up as well. You need to get Johnny back in the game. Well, what we could do is have a second season in the year, couldn't we? That's something we could possibly think about. Now, D, you see, you think, what you've said is, 2 wins for Johnny, surely something doesn't add up. Well, those 2 points that Johnny had were got the same night. Kim decided that bank holidays were worth 2 points, and that's how he got 2 points. He's only actually won 1 all season. But, he could still go to the wire, couldn't he, with penalties, and no, we best not talk about that, hadn't we? We don't want to talk about that. Poor Mike, that'll set Mike off. Anyway, if we have no more questions, we will head off. We have a late night tomorrow and a show on Sunday. In fact, we have 2, don't we?
Yeah.
We do. Okay then. So, any more questions you think of, just ping me on Slack or ping me via the contact form and I will get back to you. I need to check some mails that I think I may have sent or may not have sent. I'll sort all of that out. And we will be back with you tomorrow in Marooned and Sunday with the build with me. Oh, it'll be so exciting, it will. But for the moment, I'm going to say good night from me.
And good night from me.
And we will both see you next time. Stay safe, guys.